Call the meeting of December 16th, 2013 to order. Mr. Richmond, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge. Ready? Salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much, sir. Roll call, please.
Yes, Councilmember Friend. Councilmember Friend.
Here.
Mayor Velasquez.
Here.
Councilmember Scatini.
Here.
Councilmember Gomez.
Here.
Interim City Manager Vera.
Here.
And Interim City Attorney Mall, excuse me, Chief of Police Westrick.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Verification of agenda posting.
The agenda for the City Council meeting of December 16th was posted on the bulletin board at City Hall on December 12th at 3:05 p.m. per Government Code Section 54954.2.
Thank you. City Attorney, is there anything you'd like to report out from closed session?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the City Council went into closed session at 5 o'clock to discuss a public employment appointment. The title is the City Manager, and no reportable action was taken.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward to item A. Are there any items the council would like to pull?
Item A12.
A12. Any other items? We have
I have several. A3,
A3,
A12, and
A12.
A15.
Motion to approve as amended.
I'd like to pull.
Sorry.
A5, A6, A7, A8, and A9. Right down the line. Okay.
No, the two I was going to pull are already gone.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the other items?
Motion to approve as amended.
I'll make a motion that we approve all the consent agenda except for A 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, and 15,
A3,
and A3.
A12. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much. A3,
Pam Little.
Good evening, Mayor and Council Board and audience today. My name is Pam Little. I am the principal at Sierra Vista Elementary School here in Hollister, and I would like to speak briefly in support of the school resource officer that is on the agenda today. We have had the very great support in the past of a school resource officer and have been without parts of that job for the last few years and would really very much like to see that position fully reinstated. It is a wonderful resource to see an officer with whom the children can relate at the schools, talking with them not only about the great program, but going on to the playground or just seeing them during their normal day and building a relationship with these kids. I can't understate or overstate how important that is. I have seen students who were kind of on the edge, going into gangs and things. All of a sudden, they're seeing, it was Officer Rodriguez before, Carlos Rodriguez was our last one. And he had built such a wonderful rapport with the children that they go up and say, hey, how you doing? You know, what's going on, all the time when he was there. And children started to want to be police officers. And that I just can't say enough about, because if they're going to go down a wrong path and all of a sudden start to really relate to an officer and see themselves as an officer, or at least someone who's doing something very positive to the community, that cannot be overstated. Also, when the children do build this relationship and then they get into trouble at school, which has happened at our school, and I'm sure many others, and then they go in, they already have a relationship with that officer, they are so much more likely to listen and understand what he is trying to talk to, or she is trying to talk to them about, and it will come out to a much more positive impact with those children. Also, we've also had the GREAT program in our schools with Deputy Rich Brown. That has been a wonderful program as well. I hear the children on the playground talking about the GREAT program and about how they're not going to get into gangs. And you remember what Deputy Brown said, and when he's on the campus, said, "Hey, Deputy Brown." And it's that wonderful relationship again that stays with children, that gets them to trust police and sheriffs and make better decisions in their lives. Also, the safety for our schools. Not only are children going to think twice before getting into more trouble, which is what we have seen too, because I have heard the children out on the playground talk about, well, remember what Deputy Brown said, or remember what Officer Rodriguez said before. And then also the community. Our schools are only going to be getting larger for the short-term future. We have, especially around our school, we have a huge development going in right around Sarah Vista School. And our school is going to become a lot larger. The traffic, there's already a traffic problem. It is only going to increase. If we can have that extra support that is going to be concentrating only on the schools, help us with that safety. We have some parents, because it is so crowded right now, doing some things that are really unsafe, like jaywalking with their children across the street, trying to coax their children into cars when they are out in the street between parked cars. A lot of really unsafe activities. And if we have an officer out there just having a presence now and then, I think that's going to really curtail a lot of that unsafe activity. So I know there are others who also have some important things to say, so I will yield the floor, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, that was A15 she was speaking on, not A3. Oh, A15, yes. That's okay.
I just hope there's people that excited about the code enforcement officer that was on there.
Impressed.
I don't think code enforcement officers get that same respect, Chief, but, you know, but still.
Jeananne Graver?
Good evening. My name is Jeananne Gaver. I live at 1570 Monticello Drive here in Hollister, and I am the principal of our Hardin School. So I'm going to reiterate some of what Pam said, but also add a few of my own comments. So at our Hardin, some days I feel like I see the police more often than I want to, but when it's the school resource officer, I never feel that way. Their school resource officer brings a lot of benefits to our school. Students and staff, including myself, feel safer when we know that there's a friendly officer on campus. Well, all officers are friendly, but this one is there to support us and not coming for any other reason. It acts as a deterrent to parents. We have a fair number of parents who may wish to come and flaunt their gang affiliation through their attire, and if there's a school resource officer on campus from time to time, that will deter them. Also, you know, we have parents on campus who may feel like if there's nobody watching, that they would like to speak or act in a threatening way, sometimes to myself, to other adults on campus, or to children. And the school resource officer will, if there's a chance that that school resource officer is going to be on campus, it's less likely that that will happen. Personally, I've had the school resource officer be a great support to me in dealing with difficult parents and students who may be making incorrect choices. And I would have to say that is really the number one thing that we get from having a school resource officer and an instructor for the GREAT program, the connections and the positive relationships with students who may be heading down the wrong path. So many of the kids at R.O. Hardin, their only chance they have to meet a police officer outside of school may not have such a positive influence on their lives. But the school resource officer definitely works to build those connections and those positive relationships with the children. And I would also like to repeat what Pam said about the GREAT program. I hope that if you do decide that you want to go through with hiring the school resource officer, that you will have the GREAT gang resistance education and training program be part of their job description. Our children through that program learn things like how to control their anger, how to solve problems constructively, how to avoid peer pressure to participate in activities that are illegal or unhealthy, how to prevent and stop bullying, how to speak up for themselves in a positive way, and how to make good decisions. All of those things, they may not have other role models in their lives who can teach them that. So I hope that you will decide positively for the school resource officer and the great program tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Elaine Clower?
Good evening. My name is Elaine Clower. I'm the principal at Rancho San Justo Middle School. And I'd like to reiterate what the other two principals said as well. But for middle school specifically, we are looking at a lot of students that are at risk. And 7th and 8th grade can be a very difficult time when there's testing limitations, testing things even within the law enforcement. And what we'd like to do is be able to promote positive relationships between law enforcement and our students, as well as the GREAT program. And recently I had an opportunity to talk to Krista Lamonto over at the high school and what she's doing with the resource officer there. And they just had a wonderful workshop that the resource officer went through with Google about social media and cyberbullying. And it was a wonderful program that I'd like to bring specifically to our middle schools so that we can talk about that, because those are issues that are happening now, and the school resource officer can be the bridge to that gap between understanding that social media, what's happening, and that's what's happening specifically with middle school students, as well as the GREAT program in drug prevention. But it is a friendly face that we need on campus. It also makes our school feel safer within the students, staff, and parents, and the resource would definitely not go unnoticed, and we desperately need it. So it is something that the middle school supports and would be using in full force as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gary McIntyre?
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. I'd like to say a couple comments about the code enforcement officer, but that probably would just somebody needs to. But it sounds like a good idea. But I do want to actually make a few comments about the school beat officer or the school resource officer that our principals have discussed. I'm Gary McIntyre. I'm superintendent of the Hollister School District. I'm here this evening. Following a few years ago, 2010, I think up to about that point, the city council and the city of Hollister, or the district, the school district, Hollister School District, had an agreement, actually had two resource officers up to that point. Budget times got lean, things got very tight. The district, I think, was down to one officer at one point, and then in 2010 we had to no longer continue with that relationship. It was a real sad thing, and we really would love to have seen that continue. Officer Rodriguez was at the time that officer. I still hear students and staff commenting about the positive impact that Officer Rodriguez had at the time. Now with Prop 30 passed, our district is seeing better financial times. Our board was very excited about the opportunity to apply for a grant. Al DeVos, the gang resource, or the gang coordinator here in the county, applied for the grant, and we were hoping that with the district paying half and the grant paying the other half, they would be able to do this. And as we were very optimistic about the grant, and the grant fell through, it wasn't funded. But we'd still like to move forward. Chief Westrick was instrumental in still moving this forward, and I thank the chief and the council for considering this proposal. This opportunity is something that our board is fully supported and is prepared to pay 50% of the cost of a full-time police officer in our schools. The beat officer or school resource officer funded into this proposal would provide law enforcement activities in our schools for school safety and security. I will note that we're a year and a couple days past Sandy Hook elementary shooting. It's something that since my presence in the district, we've been working on security. We've become very much a partner with the Hollister Police Department. I can't tell you how much we've appreciated the support of the Hollister Police Department and the County Sheriff's Department, but in the assessment of safety in our schools, we got very earnestly underway last year about this time, a little more in January actually, and we've worked very hard to come up with some security plans. They're in full swing now. We're continuing to implement more rigorous security procedures at each of our sites. I would ask for your support of the school resource officer to assist us in making our schools safe and the city of Hollister safe.
Thank you very much.
Al DeVos.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, and our high school students that are trying to get their credits for their government class. Is that why there's no parking out there, I think? I'm here to speak up in support of the combined position or the partnership between Hollister School District and also the city. And I want to thank the Hollister School District Board of Trustees, first of all, for seeing that there is a need, and it's a need that has been there in the past, and it's a need that we've been able to have a partnership to fill it. And it's a need that they've saw fit to put some of their resources on the line. And I think the reasoning behind that is because, I think the district and most of the community members all realize that, what happens in our schools is really what happens to our most precious resource in our community, and that's our children and our kids. And as Dr. McIntyre said, safety has been an issue, but also part of our gang prevention effort we've had in the community is really focused on not just making the school safe and working on violence prevention programs, but also on helping kids get the skills that'll help them resist being in gangs. So through the GREAT program. And for the past 5 years, we've been able to keep a steady progression of the GREAT program. And so we're almost at the point where we're going to have kids that learn GREAT in 3rd grade matriculating into 9th grade. And really, once we get to where we have a whole generation of kids that have had this GREAT programming, we're going to be inoculating all of those youth against gangs. Some of the positive impacts of the GREAT program, and it has to be taught by a uniformed officer and specially trained officer, but it shows that even 4 years after the program, kids out of high school, that they show an increased positive relationship with law enforcement. They have a decrease in violence, decrease in thinking that are resorting to aggression, but also they have a 24% decrease in the chance of joining in a gang as a result of that program, and also a decrease in dropout rate. So the community, or the GREAT program, and the school resource officer, it really helps us build new citizens. And so it's really about giving kids the skills, but building that relationship between law enforcement is so important in this society we live in today, where kids are just growing up with it. They don't even think I should tell or not tell. There's this culture of don't snitch, and that's an important part of GREAT, is giving kids the skills that, hey, we need to tell if something's wrong or if somebody's getting hurt. And I have to credit Chief Westrick for doing an awesome job. Every press release and everything else that we see going out is always thanking the community for stepping up, and that's what we're working on through the GREAT program and building the relationship with law enforcement, is so that as our youth grow up and they see that somebody else is getting hurt, that they will stand tall and they will report this. And it's not something that is just going to happen without an effort. So I think this is an integral piece to meeting that need and a lot of other needs regarding to safety and just building a safe Hollister community. So as gang prevention coordinator, I strongly support this position. I hope you're able to do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Marty Richmond.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm Marty Richmond from Hollister. As many of you know, when Measure E came up for a vote, I was a supporter, and I said one of the reasons I supported Measure E was because I believe that we did need more law enforcement capability here and application. And this is exactly what we need. The best argument for having a school resource officer just walked away from this podium, which is Mr. DeVos. We went years here with good intentions of having a anti-gang task force and having someone coordinate it. And we spent a lot of effort, a lot of money, and we spun our wheels a lot because we didn't have that key person in that key slot. You all remember this. And that's what a school resource officer can do for you. Several weeks ago, I wrote a column about law enforcement
and the cost of crime in California. And it costs now somewhere between $57,000 and $67,000 a year to put somebody in prison for 1 year. And when it comes to law enforcement, and when it comes to behavior, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I assure you that. It's an old saying. So I think this is a good investment. And for years, the Chief Westrick and I have been talking before he was even the chief. And I don't measure the police department by how many arrests they make. I think those are stupid statistics, and how many convictions they get, because crime rates go up and crime rates go down. I measure on two other things. The first and foremost is the relationship with the community, because the community knows what's going on. And second is the trajectory of where we're going. Not how we did this week or next week, but how we're doing overall over a period of time. And I think this kind of position can keep us on a good trajectory, and it cements the relationship with the community, which is the most important thing that law enforcement has on their side. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Keith Snow.
One thing that they get in the skills program, it mean with the on aid, and we did not that program. We get this sport program too. So then they're in there with police officers, private agents, school teachers. Now we do not our one police officer on school. We are 18 police officers, so the kids will be more safer in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. No others? Okay. Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually didn't ask for this item to be pulled. I didn't realize we were going to have so many speakers on it, but I'm thankful that they all came out and spoke on this item. To me, it was a slam dunk. I don't really, like many that have spoken, it's definitely a good thing for the community to have this position in our schools. If anything, hopefully it's the right it's one step in the right direction. I think, I think we could definitely use this, another one of these positions in our schools. So I very much support this. It has a residual effect on our community as well, because the kids, they are, I think somebody mentioned it earlier, obviously they are the future of this community. This is their community. They're going to be up here. They're going to be the next Ignacio Velasquez. They're going to be up here leading the city's efforts. So, like I said, I'm very much supportive of it. I do want to thank Gary McIntyre and Al DeVos and our police chief for continually working together for the betterment of the schools and the community in general. I do think that there was an interesting point that was made by one of the principals, I believe, and I never thought about it like this, because when this position was here, and I know Carlos, the police officer Rodriguez, I believe that was the officer in the past, was well liked by a lot of the community, and so I've been thinking about this, but one of the principals made the point of it also helping with parents. I didn't want to laugh at that, though I kind of did want to laugh at it, because it is important. It does help with those rowdy parents before and after school making excuses for their kids and their behavior. So I'm glad you made that point, because I think that even solidifies it even more. I think at times the parents could use it a lot more than the kids. So anyway, I'm very supportive of this. So thank you, everybody, for speaking on this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Gomez. Councilmember Scatini.
I can't say very much more than what has already been said, but if I had my way about it, I would put 2 officers in each school district for the whole duration of the school, from 8 to 4, or whatever it is. But I'm wholeheartedly supportive of this issue, and I think for the good of the city, the police department, and especially the kids, with all these shootings at these different Colorado, and we just had one just the other day. And we can't put enough officers on the streets. We need the boots on the streets to protect the kids and protect the citizens, and I'm 100% behind it. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Councilmember Friend?
No, I'm like Victor, I'm in favor of this because I think it's an excellent idea. My concern is it's only a 2-year program. This funding is only good through December of 2015. I'd hate to be here again 2 years from now fighting the same battle. After this is approved or disapproved, we have to figure out a way to fund this all the time. In fact, maybe more. The other question I have to the chief is this an additional officer? Are you going to hire an additional officer for this, or are you going to take from within the ranks?
No, we'll need to hire an additional officer to backfill for this position, but we're prepared to place this officer immediately in January.
Mm-hmm. Okay. No, like I said, I'm for this. My concern is it's only 2 years of funding, and that's a shame. But I understand the political issues about that. So.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. A few months ago, Chief Westrick and Chief O'Connor, Fire Chief O'Connor, and I visited a elementary school, and we went to go visit the first graders, and then later I visited the second graders. They were excited to get in the cop car. Take a look at what these guys do.
In the front seat.
They want to know how they handle the bad guys. But the other night, I was at an event, and a mother and her 2 kids came up, and the son said, "Do you remember me? You came to my school." I said, "Of course I remember you." He said, "I'm going to be a cop, just like the cop that came over to my school." And it was so great to see that. You know, every young person, every child wants to be a police officer. They want to be that fireman. They want to be an astronaut, or they want to be like Councilmember Gomez. Thank you, by the way.
Not every child.
But they all want a great thing. And if we can put that officer on campus and go from class to class, have them become aware of the danger signs, like it was experienced in Colorado the other day again, it's well worth it. So we're going to find that solution, Councilmember Friend, to keep going on. So I'm definitely fully supportive of the idea. So thank you all for coming out.
I'll make a motion to approve item A15.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for supporting code enforcement.
I thought we just voted.
Oh, okay.
I am
Oh,
kind of
it's you.
I am kind of hurt that they forgot about all the ice cream trucks I chased for them, but that's okay.
Okay, well, moving on to A3.
Not as popular, huh, Mike?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, A3 went to review the code enforcement position in anticipation of putting it out for recruitment. Noticed that the job description had not been reviewed in 13 years. There were factual errors on the job description. So I fixed the errors, had it in an old union from 8 years ago. The pay rate was wrong from, I think, 10 years ago. And then the one thing I did modify was I lowered the educational requirement to the same as a police officer.
That doesn't sound right.
I was saying, was that a...
He wasn't here.
Okay. Do we have speakers?
Keith Snow?
enforcement officer too. They got to do their work right, educate the people. What I mentioned, we reached over, like, I mentioned to Dale, I did all the programs, they do this program, they want to be ready for more officers. You know, we have reserve officers, we have more for officers, and it's safer things.
Thank you very much.
No others.
Any other speakers? Councilmember Gomez?
No.
Councilmember Scatini?
No, not at this time.
Councilmember Friend?
No.
I have a question for you. This code officer, in the description, you talked about that person be bilingual. Is that something we're going to hold?
Preferred.
To?
Preferred.
I think this is a position that's going to require somebody that's bilingual. So if we don't find somebody that is, how are you going to handle that situation?
Same way we handle it now. I'm not bilingual.
Well, but this is part of the problem. 60% of our community is Hispanic, so there are several that are probably going to want somebody to speak to them in Spanish so they can understand it clearly.
We provide translation services. We work with other departments that have Spanish-speaking individuals. We provide written documents in Spanish, and often I can contact a police officer who speaks Spanish.
I guess what I'm saying,
It's not ideal, but...
Are we making a good effort to make sure we're finding somebody that is bilingual for this position?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I'll make a motion to approve A3.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you very much. A5, are there any speakers? No. Talk to me about this equipment you, or us, I'm sorry, you need for the airport.
Well, as you recall, we recently are just wrapping up a $2.5 million grant project out there to regrade the safety zones of the airport. As a portion of that project, we had to pay approximately $60,000 for 8 biologists to crawl through the project area and make sure there were no imaginary tiger salamanders present in any hole bigger than a half an inch. Upon their completion of this project, the recommendation is to disc the areas that have been cleared to prevent any habitat to be created for any imaginary tiger salamanders to occupy. So the expenditure of this $10,000 is to prevent having to hire a bunch of biologists to crawl at the airport again.
Okay. Councilmember Gomez?
I still haven't seen one, Harry. Do you know? Mike, you guys? Oh, gosh.
The biologist believes they're there.
Yeah, okay. No questions.
Councilmember Scatini?
Yeah, I have maybe a couple of questions for you, Mike. Are you gonna go on excuse me, that cold. You gonna go out and buy a tractor? Is that what you're gonna do?
No, a disc for the tractor.
For a disc?
A disc and then
$10,000
new
for a
tires.
disc?
The disc is $6,000, and then the additional $4,000 is for
Okay.
tractor tires.
What's wrong going out and renting it? You're only gonna do it one time, right?
We have to do it monthly.
You gotta disc it monthly?
Yes, sir.
Who required that?
I'm sorry?
Who required?
That is the advice of the biologist to prevent any habitat being created by any burrowing animals.
I understand that, but he's just giving you advice. He has no authority to tell you to go out and buy a...
You are absolutely correct. But once again, if we don't do this and there are holes out there when it comes time to build the new CAL FIRE air attack base, or it comes time to build any new hangars, we're going to have to hire the biologist to go out there again and do it. Fish and Game has already taken that position.
Councilmember Friend?
No, that was my question also. Living in a rural area, I'm sure we could hire somebody to disc that section of the driveway once a month. Would that be cheaper than buying our own unit?
It'll be $1,000 a month.
Okay.
Councilmember
It's
Gomez?
approximately 100 acres that need to be disked.
So just for the public's knowledge as well as mine, so if it isn't this and these nice little critters come back and form a habitat again, what happens then?
If ground squirrels or mice or snakes for that matter, bore a hole into the ground, we have to hire biologists to come through and clear the project area, which requires them hand digging each hole till the end.
What's the, I know it's kind of hard to throw out a figure like that, but what would you say something like a biologist, hired biologist to do that kind of work would cost?
We had 8 biologists for 6 days to clear 100 acres, and it was $60,000.
$60,000.
Yes.
So about 6 discs.
We're in the wrong business.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
and tires.
Okay, yeah.
Well, whether we disc it once a month or not, you're going to find some holes in there. The gophers are going to come around and they're going to get in there, so.
Well, the disking combined with our rodent abatement program, which has been pretty successful, ought to keep it in check.
Actually, Councilmember Scatini made a good point about, I find it hard to believe that it has to be done every month. And I think Councilmember Friend pointed out a good idea about finding a local person that can do this work and pay them the money so we're not.
If I can interject just for a second,
And
Mike.
I guess the last question I was going to have
Okay.
is, have we checked the yard for any equipment that we could use?
The sewer plant has a disc, but it's extremely labor-intensive in transferring it to the airport. It has to be trucked on an 18-wheeler, requiring a Class A driver's license, and for the vehicle to be chained down and then unchained and then rechained and then unchained and transported. This piece of equipment will be purchased with airport fund money. This is not a general fund expense. In addition to the fact, I guess I should have mentioned that the Airport Commission recommended this unanimously.
Well, whether the airport fund has extra money or not, we need to make sure we're protecting all the funds we can. So I'm concerned that we do have a disc, but yet we're going to buy another disc. I mean, if I can get equipment moved from Morgan Hill to here for $100, $150, a tractor, I'm sure we can get a disc moved from the treatment plant to the airport for $100. So
I think one of the things that I think we're kind of losing sight of the bigger picture here. I think the bigger picture is not whether or not you disc once a month or once every 2 months or once every 3 months. The fact is that you should have a regularly scheduled disking of the property that we can document so that when we do future environmental documents, we can note that there should not be habitat. That gets us away from using the biologist. If we don't have that, Harry and Don and everybody will tell you how much more money you're spend going in, and if you happen to find one. I mean, we've been fortunate that we haven't found one. If we find one, then all of a sudden we're sitting up mitigation banks, and now you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, and looking at a $10,000 expense for a disc at the airport, I think, is probably the prudent thing to do so that we do have large projects going on at the airport. I mean, part of our goal over the next few years is to increase the usage of the airport, put businesses out there, which are going to require several $1 million worth of projects. And I think what we want to be able to do is get through the environmental process as quickly as possible. And I think the only way to do that is to by making sure that these things don't end up embedding themselves in that particular area.
I agree, and I think you pointed out something very important, documenting what we're doing. And we're talking about a disc, but we have to pay somebody to pull the disc, and we have to have equipment that pulls that disc also.
Which we have.
So-
We have airport staff that operates a tractor out there and is trained and would be doing that work. We already have the expensive piece, which is the tractor. That was $125,000.
I would personally rather see us working with a local contractor for the first year and see if that's doing the job or not. It's just my opinion. Council, is there a motion for,
I move that we approve A5.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No. Motion carries. Did I hear you say yes, or?
You didn't hear me say anything.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. You were so cool there, I couldn't tell. Move on to item,
I was thinking.
you're thinking, okay, A6.
A6 is in preparation of the fire department replacing several of their vehicles through the same funding source that the police department used. We would package together to get a much better interest rate on that. And I believe it's a 5-year lease to own, for lack of a better term, program. The goal is to replace the airport maintenance vehicle, which is falling apart. As you know, it has a service body on it. The toolboxes are rusted out. The vehicle is over 12 years old. We've have to put thousands of dollars into it annually just to keep it running. It's time to be replaced. The intention would be to replace it with the same equipment that the water department is using, which would have a lift tailgate in the back, which would make it safer for my employee to move large equipment. Currently, we do not have that capability, and it does create more of a hazard for the employee to move the stuff he needs to move.
Are there any speakers? We'll start with you this time, Councilmember Friend.
I have no comment.
Councilmember Scatini?
Yeah, I do. I have a couple of questions. How much money is in that airport fund? Can you tell me offhand?
About $280,000 in reserves.
Reserves. And you can spend all that money if you want, right?
No, we can spend all that money if you want.
Well, trouble is, I don't want to spend it. You know that me by now, Mike. But anyway, you mentioned the fire department, but in this resolution?
No, they will be bringing a separate item to you in the future to replace some vehicles. When they do, we will move it in concert, so it's a much bigger package, so we get a better interest rate for the city.
I understand.
I'm just trying to get my stuff done and out of the way.
Well, you mentioned the fire department. I didn't see it on here, so.
No, it's not on here yet.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gomez?
I don't have any questions on this.
Well, I do not want to spend that money. This is a $60,000 vehicle we're talking about here. And again, have we checked the yard for some vehicles that can do this work?
I have not.
Let's check the yard before we...
You understand that if I take a vehicle from the yard, that we still have to spend this money to buy it from the yard?
That's okay. It's probably a lot less than $60,000.
Got it.
Okay, so...
Well, the problem is you go to the yard, you get another 10-year-old vehicle, it's just going to cost as much to maintain as the one we got.
And because it's an airport, I'm going to have to paint it, because an airport vehicle has to be painted a unique color. I'm going to have to put special light equipment on it, so there'll probably be about a $15,000 upgrade to whatever vehicle you get at the yard.
To paint?
To paint and put the lighting package in, yes.
Okay.
I move that we approve A6.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. It's your call, council member.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you very much. Item A7, just wanted to do I think probably everybody knows where they're at with this, but I just wanted to maybe do is there any speakers? No. Councilmember Gomez, do you have any questions?
No.
Councilmember
What?
Scatini? A7.
A7? Oh, no.
No question.
No,
Right.
I think just for the record, I'd ask the question. These memorandums of understanding between the confidential members, mid-management, and the salaries for the executive management are the same as what we've already discussed when we went through the MOUs.
Correct. It was the same thing that the SEIU group asked, aligning with the other groups.
Okay. Thank you. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve A7 and A8.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. That covers A7 and A8. A9 also I called. Is there a motion?
Well, it's the same.
Same item.
Same
Right.
item, so I would make the motion to include A8, A9.
Okay. Is there a second on A9?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No. Thank you very much. Move on to A10. Oh, that wasn't called out. A12.
Marty
Speakers?
Richmond?
Good evening again, Marty Richmond from Hollister. It's with regret that I have to come up here and oppose this proposal due to what I feel is the appearance of a conflict of interest between L&G and other people who will try to develop in this area. I know the people personally. I have no axe to grind. I like them. I like some of their ideas for developing in the county. But I am concerned about the third-party appearance of a conflict of interest. And as many of you know, it is about appearance is where a conflict of interest gets into trouble. I'm not saying they're going to go run back to their parent organization and tell them what's going on. After all, they are attorneys. They're sworn to a confidentiality agreement. I believe they will honor that. My concern is when a third party comes in and we have a city attorney whose job it will be to work with the county in our unique situation here where we essentially have for lack of a better term, a one city county, where we have tax sharing agreements about how much, and that involves an enormous amount of money. And whether a development is possible or not possible often depends on what that costs and who winds up with the money. And having gone to many county meetings where people come storming in time after time screaming, you promised me it wasn't going to cost this much when I let the city annex me, and this becomes a major operation. And I am very concerned that people who are doing this will note that the city attorney although acting on your behalf and representing you, is an employee of a firm which might have a competing development operating over at the county. Here, I assume you've discussed this issue, and here I'm guessing it's pretty easy. If L&G has something on the block, the attorney will recuse themselves. Somebody will have to pick up the bill. I hope you've discussed who will pay that differential. And that's pretty straightforward. But what is less straightforward is the appearance of a conflict with a third party. And I'd like to point out how serious the state of California takes this, and the courts. People in the audience may not know, they probably do know, that you have to recuse yourself if you have a personal interest, such as the mayor recuses himself on the motorcycle votes that involve downtown because he has a business there. But do you know it is against the state law for him to vote, even if he votes against his own interest. For instance, if the city council proposed a tax on everybody downtown, an enormous tax, and the mayor wanted to go in there as a business person and say, I'll vote for that. If it involves the motorcycle rally, he can't do it, even though it's against his own personal interest, because it's a conflict of interest appearance. That's my understanding of the law, and that's why he has to step aside and not even comment. So I appreciate you giving me 5 more seconds to just say that's the basis of my opposition. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Carol Lenore?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council men. Since you're being so frugal tonight, I did read that contract. I wondered if maybe you wanted to tell the group here this evening the compensation package. I just think, was it $8,800 a month for 15 hours a week? Is that what it is? $8,800 a month for 15 hours a week? That doesn't seem like a good deal for me. I mean, it just seems like it's excessive for 15 hours a week. So I just wanted to know if you guys discussed that, and what happens when you go over $140 an hour. I think you're going to go over that 15 hours a week, and it's going to cost us. So since you're being frugal, and I thought maybe you want to think about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keith Snow.
Well, for one, as like example, to answer the question, like you want an attorney for the city, not the county, because not the city's paying interest. To answer the question earlier, like the money is paid, like Monk has mentioned earlier. You guys mentioned earlier, costs North Money for some to tow to the airport equipment to the fields. What we had to look for one when you guys hire someone, make sure the attorney not doing the county jobs. You want one that was in the city only. For example, see over there at the powers, don't you guys have Class A drivers to do they're going over there to the city to do the fields? Be of no charge. You want to represent the city, not the county. So when you guys do our attorney, make sure you get attorney only, but not the county. Because you guys do this a lot of money. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
No other speakers.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think it's kind of unique that I'm able to, I just wanted to clarify a few things, and plus I sat on the committee, on the screening committee, along with Mayor Velasquez. And just for a little background, for those that haven't been necessarily paying attention to the details of this issue came up about 6 months ago. Our city attorney that we had before left her position, and we had the debate on whether we should rehire a permanent city attorney or look for a contract from a local or from a law firm that could provide these services. I was firmly opposed to it. Like Carol Lenore that just came up here and spoke, had, and I won't lie, to an extent, I'm still a little bit cautious proceeding, that I just want to make sure that financially we'll be in a good situation. I don't want to run the risk of us spending more than we did before. This contract here, which was fairly close to the others that competed, or the other that competed in this, which was Wellington, we're fairly close, though LNG was a little bit lower in costs. But I do want the public to know that, yeah, you look at this figure of 87 whatever, and yeah, it is a pretty penny, no doubt about that. But we were paying altogether for a city attorney budget, we were paying $20,000 a month. So going from $20,000 a month to $8,800 is a significant change. And I think, though I believe there's a possibility of it going over that, I don't believe that we'll get to the point where we'll exceed, or I'm confident that we won't get to the point where we're going to exceed $250,000 a year, as we were before. So let me speak a little bit on the committee process. So the mayor appointed me, as I said, uniquely, because I was opposed to this in the first place. And I thought it was a good appointment because I would probably be the most biased person against it. But I'm willing, like I said before, I was willing to rethink this so we could revisit this and eventually get to the point where we were to get these proposals. We did get proposals. 3 of them were what I consider to be ridiculous. They were, I don't know, 50 to 80,000 higher than Wellington and LNG that were very competitive and submitted some very nice proposals. And with both applicants, I had the same concern that that Mr. Richmond had. I don't know where Marty is, but Marty, brought up the issue with just in general of what it's going to look like, what the perceived conflict is going to be, and I think it's an excellent point. And I did ask those questions during the committee meetings, and I do want to make that public. That it was one of my concerns, as it was with Wellington, because I know that they represent the city of San Juan Bautista. So I guess it could be said for both that both of them could have potentially been perceived as a conflict of interest. So it's tough. It was a tough decision because they're both very well-respected law firms here locally. But I think overall, through the process, we felt a little bit more comfortable and inclined to go with Lombardo and Gillis. As a city, we haven't had the work. I know that they work closely and they're tied in with the county quite a bit. Not so for the city of Hollister. But I do want to reinforce, if this does move forward and the council does support this, I do want to let Lombardo and Gillis know, if they are accepted as the contracted city attorney, that I can't speak for the whole council, but I don't take those matters lightly. So when it comes to conflict of interest, whether it's clear or not clear, we need to be sure of that. And it's not something, like I said, it's not something that we take lightly. So if it is, if the conflict is there, let's just get it over with, get it off the table, and bring in an out-of-house attorney to take care of those issues. So, like I said, I thought the process was very transparent. If anybody could be more biased and say it when otherwise it would have been me, but I'm not doing that. I'm supportive of this now for the time being, and I hope that this sort of one-year pilot program, as I'm going to call, is successful. And we do walk away from this saving ourselves maybe about $100,000 to the city of Hollister. We just paid, $140,000 or whatever to have this 2-year contract for a school resource officer. I think that's wonderful. Maybe that'll open up those opportunities to be able to redirect funds to public safety and bring and create even a safer environment for our schools. I'm sure we would all support that again. So anyway, I'll just wrap up my statements by saying I appreciate the comments from the public. I appreciate the mayor appointing me to the committee and my fellow council members. I also want to thank all 5 law firms that submitted proposals and the 2 candidates as well. Thank you very much for sitting down with the mayor and I to discuss those proposals. And we look forward to a good start to this upcoming year if approved. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Scatini?
I think Victor said it all. I was one of the first council member, I believe, that supported a contract attorney. And the reason why is very simple. Victor mentions $220,000. It's closer to $300,000 with the last attorney. We got a local firm, and I personally know them, and I never had to use them so far. Maybe someday you may have to if they're, no, not really, but they're right around the corner. We don't have to spend, pay travel money. We don't have to pay, I'm not going to go into all of it, but they're on that contract. They don't get the medical, they don't get any of that stuff. We're saving a ton of money. And they're around the corner, we can call them. Plus, they're local, and as far as I know, like I say, I don't know anything about how good they are or anything like that, but we'll find out. But I am a big supporter of it, and both of them, Paul Rivera and Brad, are always available. They will be always available to us. So that's my take on it. And I'm not going to say what Victor said, because he said a whole bunch, but I concur what he said.
Councilmember Friend?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. I was one that was in Victor's corner there with, I didn't think this was a good idea. And to answer Marty's question, I understand what you're saying, and I don't know how we could have went to a local attorney's company without that perception coming up every now and then. I don't know how we can do that. The other thing is, I wish the council had been apprised of the decision a little bit before getting the package, so we could have discussed it maybe a little bit. For the audiences, some of us, this is the first I heard who was picked. I don't know. I didn't think it was a very seamless process. Would have been nice to have been able to discuss why these people were picked and how they were picked. But just for the comment about the cost, I will be very happy and I will buy everybody pizza. If we come in under, there is no way, if you do half the hours that our city attorney put in before, if you just do it that way, it's going to be well over $200,000, the bill. So if this saves us money, I will be the first one to stand up on top of City Hall and yell it out that we saved money, and I hope we do. There's no way this is going to cost us less money, unless we don't use an attorney. We just go blindly on.
And I do want to add, Mr. Mayor, that Councilmember Friend, you don't even have to buy the pizzas. I'll donate them.
I don't want any conflict. I'll buy them. That's all I have.
Thank you. To the question of being frugal tonight, yes, 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 yes. We are saving over $120,000 by doing this. We had two really good firms in the end that we looked at, Councilmember Gomez and I. We studied them very well. We went back and forth on this. It was difficult to communicate that with our fellow council members for fear of the violating the Brown Act, unfortunately. But we addressed the issues of conflicts, and as Councilmember Friend said, it's next to impossible to have a local company not have some conflicts even when you're not local. But it was made clear, very clear, how that would be addressed and what would be the result if there was a problem or a perceived problem that arose. So we're going to be holding them to a very high standard, and we expect that. And if it doesn't happen, then we'll have another attorney. But we do expect very professional the work that they do here. So, and again, I want to thank the other firm, and Deborah especially, an incredible job she's done, and I want to really thank you and your firm for the work you did put out. Okay, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No? No? Okay. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Before we move on, I think
I'm gonna
some of the
announce
high
it
school
right
kids
now.
want to leave, and we set a record for the longest consent calendar ever, so.
Right, so we'll take a 5-minute break.
I don't think we passed the consent calendar, did we? No, they didn't do the other items. Did they?
They did, there was like 3.
Okay, all right.
Well, in all honesty, some of those items shouldn't have been on consent, but in all honesty, some of those items shouldn't have been on consent.
Yeah, what happened? They did it right before they.
Harry's going to do another hour.
You have a pen, bro?
Thank you, Chief.
Harry, take a break on it.
Thank you for what? What do you thank you for? about, how about your steak sandwich? I'll cook pizza.
I don't know. I don't know. Just that.
You gotta trim that careful by your thing.
No, we don't.
you better save your money. You better save your money if you're going to buy pizza for everybody. You're going to be, it's going to be a huge success.
Okay, let's resume the meeting now. Move on to item B1. Is there any questions from the council members?
For B1?
Are we good to go? Okay.
Make a move that we approve.
No more breaks.
I even forgot about that.
I didn't slam the gavel hard enough.
No, I thought we were in public input. Sorry about that.
I make a motion that we approve
Second.
B1.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. We move on to item C, public input.
Al DeVos?
Let me read off the statement.
Oh, sorry.
This, somebody's in a hurry tonight. This is the time for anyone in the audience to speak on any item not on the agenda within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. When the city clerk calls your name, please come to the podium, state your name and city for the record, and speak to the city council. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Please note that state law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking action on any item not on the agenda. Now, what was your name again?
My name's Al DeVos, Gang Prevention Coordinator, Mr. Mayor. Council members, I am here simply because as we end up the year and start looking forward to next year, it's a good time to reflect, but also a good time for those of us that work to recognize the people that we work with. So the Gang Prevention Policy Committee is really a collaborative between the county, the city, Hollister School District, and the San Benito County Office of Education. And that I staff that collaborative, but that collaborative is managed by a Gang Prevention Policy Committee. And each partner agency has 2 members that sit on the policy committee and participate in our retreat, develop a strategic plan, and they attend a monthly meeting, one more meeting in the evening every Wednesday night at the end of the month. So I'd just like to present a certificate of recognition to Robert Scatini, and also one to Pauline Valdivia, if I could leave that maybe with Jerry to pass along to her. And it just really says the Gang Prevention Policy Committee recognizes Robert Scatini for dedicated service in the year of 2013. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, Mr. Scatini. I'll wait for you to get here. So thank you, Robert. We appreciate having you on the committee. And there might be a camera there, too.
Well, do I get any money for this?
Well, let's talk to the attorney on that. And in closing, I would just like to recognize past committee member Victor Gomez, who participated in the committee and helped us get us on the way there, and also to our city manager, or interim city manager, Bill Avera, who's on the management committee that always helps out in our strategy and decision-making for that. So it's a pleasure to be a part of this partnership. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Marty Richmond?
That's Pauline Valdivia's.
Marty Richard from Hollister. Well, here we are, last meeting of the year. So I wanted to just take an opportunity to thank everybody for all the consideration I get, all the times I've come up here and harangued you, and you always take it with good humor, and I harangue everybody. Just ask the folks from the Water District sitting right over there. And I want to thank the staff, especially of the City of Hollister. I call them all the time for information. They're always cooperative, and they're always friendly, and they're always professional. And they know that sometimes I take the information, and I pack it like a little bomb, and I put a fuse in it, and I write an article about it, and they're not happy with what it says. But they never take it personal. And I never mean it personal, because I appreciate public employees, and I understand they have a terrible job in one respect. People call them all kinds of things and accuse them of all kinds of things, and they just have to keep smiling. Fortunately, most of them have a paycheck that allows them to smile when they go home. So you see, I haven't changed my tune. So I want to wish all the employees, all the public servants, including the water district, both water districts, a Merry Christmas and a healthy and happy New Year and a happy holiday and a good future. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Marvin Jones.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, City Council, I'm speaking from memory. I did not have time to research this. In one of the earlier items, you were speaking of tiger salamanders. It's my understanding from recollection, again, I did not confirm this, didn't have time, that you will not have tiger salamanders unless you have a wet weather pond within 2 miles. One that fills up when it rains and dries during the summer. If you don't have a wet weather pond within a couple of miles of the airport, you may want to reconsider your disc. If you've got a wet weather pond, you may want to consider putting in a drain, but then you'd get afoul of the Corps of Engineers. So again, if there's not a wet weather pond, it's some fancy name for it, a riparian pool or whatever. If you don't have a seasonal pond there, you might want to reconsider your disc. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Keith Snow.
Mayor Council, if you guys see earlier before the meeting, I gave you guys a pamphlet how created to lose for the people and not pay out to the community. I lose 50 pounds in right. Because a lot of PC out there, people dying every day, or children are dying every day. And I want people to know, the food bank don't forget to give a turkey or something to the people that are unfortunate that's thrown out there. There's a good gathering Friday. I donate canned foods and toys for dots for the kids, boy and a girl. So, donate money and all that. So we have to be thankful to pick up out there on New Year's too, train driving and all that. One thing that we have to do, I'm trying to say Bill earlier, I'm waiting for the programs to email to me. We need to create a better plan for the city. How the people, like committees, I'm trying to go able, but able never email back months already. But I get calling her almost every other day. But we need to create that people involved in the city to have feedback, input, output. So that, I get good ideas. Like for example, once you have qualified people, was something about someone about the tractor to do the airport. Don't we have people at the powers have class A licenses? We need qualified people. We need to look over everything. We need to save money in the city, not spend money. And one thing that we have to have people more involved in the city. They have more creative, like the ideas I got. Have them more involved in the city. But we never had that. We need to do that. Thank you. Have a happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Thank you very much, sir.
No others.
No other speakers. Thank you. We'll move forward to item D1, update on the Hollister Urban Area Water Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I have about 15 minutes of prepared remarks on the California tiger salamander that I wanted to share with you tonight. The site for the West Hills treatment plant is under great scrutiny right now because of the California tiger salamander. And Marvin Jones is correct. They have a travel radius, which we're now experts on, and it's 1.23 miles. Now, how in the world a biologist determined that the travel radius for a California tiger salamander is 1.23 miles, but that's true. But the negotiations are continuing with between the Water District and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Services and the federal agencies, and we will be reporting that progress to you on a regular basis. The other part of the site, which is to design the new wastewater treatment plant, is well underway, and aside from the threatened and endangered species issues, we're nicely on track for that. The less salt plant has had construction underway now for about a month, and the most of the work is within the boundary of the fence line, and if you drive by it, you can see equipment there working. And the first thing was the site grading, and there's been concrete placement over the past couple of weeks, and that, again, is on schedule. The area that's outside of the fence line is the pipeline work that will be underway between the less salt plant and the Ridgemark area. That's about 4,000 feet of pipeline construction that the contractor is projecting will start sometime in January. And he has put us all on notice that because the pipeline will go in the easterly lane, that there will be traffic disruption over the next 30 days or so in January. He has signage that will be posted, there'll be notices given, and there'll be message boards placed at each end of that zone about a week in advance, so all of the motorists will be alerted. So there'll be one-way traffic from time to time when that will be disrupted. And the time of construction is roughly from 7 a.m. in the morning until about 4 p.m. in the evening. And so I'm sure that you will hear about that from people, but the contractor is very adept in dealing with this kind of traffic patterns. The two projects together are on schedule, and we are projecting that less salt will be completed, substantial completion, which means it will take beneficial occupancy and be producing the high-quality water right at the end of the summer of 2014, say September 1. And this is important because of what the next part of this agenda item will be discussing is the noticing that will have to be done and the testing and so on related to the CDPH, the California Department of Public Health. And so unless you have any questions on this one, then we can move on to the second.
Do we have any speakers? Councilmember Gomez?
No, I don't have any questions.
Councilmember Scutini?
No.
Councilmember Friend?
No.
I don't have any questions.
Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move forward to item D2.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm Don Ridenauer with Sunny Slope County Water District. This item before you is related to the salt upgrade. As I know you're aware, we're upgrading the treatment plant to meet regulatory requirements that Mr. Bloom mentioned by California Department of Public Health. The regulations that we need to upgrade to meet are for disinfection byproducts. And disinfection byproducts are a result of chlorine, which we add to the water when we treat it for disinfection, but it'll react with microscopic organic material that you get with almost exclusively with surface water, which is what we're treating at LaSalle. And it'll react in your system over several days and create a byproduct. And the byproduct that we're most concerned with here is we call trihalomethanes, and it's regulated by the state and by federal government. The upgrade will cure this problem, but the regulations that are affecting both Sunny Slope and the city of Hollister actually went into effect in October of this year. And we had been talking with the Department of Public Health for the past year, and were advised by them to submit a request for an extension to meet these regulations, but not to do it until you are under construction. The new regulations allow for an extension for up to 2 years if you're under construction with the improvements to correct the regulatory issues. So we, as soon as San Benito County Water District awarded the contract, both the city and Sunny Slope submitted that request to the state Department of Public Health and received that extension. Part of the requirements of getting that extension were that we meet certain conditions. One was to hold this public hearing tonight to allow the community to ask questions if they had any, also to receive more information about disinfection byproducts. And we'll have to report that back to the state that this meeting was held tonight. Other requirements include quarterly reports on the update of the LaSalle water treatment plant upgrade. We'll also have to report if we actually violate the new regulations. It won't be a violation, but we will have to report it to our customers if we do have a violation. We can explain that we were given an extension and so on, but we still have to make that. And it is possible near the end of the year, the way the regulations work, that we could have that happen. We're happy to say that construction upgrade should be done by September, because they gave us a year until October of 2014 to meet the new regulations. If we have a violation after that point, there would be consequences from the state. I can assure you we're going to make sure that that doesn't happen, and we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that in operation of the LaSalle plant is that we don't even violate the standards even while we have this 1-year grace period. It is important that we meet these regulations. It's not an immediate health concern. Disinfection byproducts are thought to, they believe they could cause cancer after many decades of consumption. So if you're drinking lots of water with disinfection byproducts over many decades, it has a chance of causing a health problem. We've only been operating the LaSalle plant for about 12 years now, so we haven't been under operation for that lengthy period of time. The regulations that we have to meet are the smallest amounts. We're measured in parts per billion. And what's changed with the regulations is we used to average all of our test results over our water system. So the city would average their test results over their water system, and Sunny Slope would do the same. What's changed is now we only get to average our results at specific test locations. And we have to pick those test locations at the highest risk locations where we're likely to have the highest disinfection byproduct numbers. So they're making sure that we capture the worst case in our system, and because it is a long-term risk, they're willing to give us this kind of extension. And so we are getting some regulatory relief, which is very nice, and the state was actually very helpful in their coaching us through this process, and they are very happy that we're under construction with the upgrade. So with that, I would be happy to answer any questions, and I would also ask that you allow members of your audience to ask questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers? No. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this or ask a question?
Sorry, Keith Snow.
How's it going, Council? Finally, is the area here wanting to know, is water safe to drink? Because I've been watching me before and just Cindy, be safe. And then now you guys tell us you're not safe because the way the contract like a ball just. One thing that gets me, that contract, the proposed contract, Rob's not here no more, Ruth's not here no more, but Harry got hired by Jeff, the water district. One guy's made a new water treatment plant. And one thing that gets me is I put in the paper there, but now, you know the water's not good. I mean, when you guys had the water treatment plant then, how you guys said before, it's good to drink water at the faucet. I never use the faucet. I always fucking jug or water bottles. So the point is right. When you explain this, and once being there, when guys made the contract, what gets me, when she lost out on the contract, because when the water treatment plant done, like Jeff said, he's to sell water to the city. When guys do contract, when you get any contract, you guys do, or look before guys do the contracts. Because all you do is treat out the city, and now the people got to pay for a new water treatment plant. Because if it's not good now, and once you guys get a fine to the state, right? And I'm from Sycamore County Water District in the state of California. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You want to answer that question there?
Yeah, I can't emphasize enough that the water is safe to drink. The water quality has not changed. It's no different today than it was in September or a year ago prior to these regulations. We're continuing to make changes and upgrade to meet new regulations. They wouldn't give us a year if the water wasn't safe to drink. So it is important to send that message that it is safe, but can it be better? Most certainly it can be better, and it is something that we need to make these improvements like we've started on so that after many decades we don't have the problems that they anticipate or they think that we could have. We're treating water now. One of the reasons these regulations change is they can test for things that they never used to be able to test for. We're down to testing and measuring things in parts per billion. We haven't been able to do that. Labs in this country haven't been able to do that for that lengthy period of time. So we anticipate more changes with time with water quality. And it's important that you pick technologies and upgrade your plant and give yourself the flexibility to make changes to meet those ongoing changes and those future regulation upgrades. So, but it is safe to drink.
Thank you. Councilmember Gomez?
No, I don't have any questions, but just thanks for the update. No, yeah, that's all I have. If I have any follow-up, I'll contact you guys. But yeah, thank you.
Councilmember Scutini?
No, I heard it before from Don on the Water Resource Board, so I don't have any questions, Don.
Thank you.
Councilmember Friend? I don't have any questions, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move forward to item E1.
Thank you, Mayor. The essence of time in mind, I'm going to just try to run through these as quickly as I can. We have some larger items coming up. Staff is requesting that the City Council adopt the ordinance regarding the California Code of Regulations, Title 24, the 2013 edition of the California Buildings Code, Building Standards Code, I should say. Every 3 years, the building code gets updated by the state of California. We are asking that the City of Hollister adopt the codes and amend the municipal code to replace chapter, I think it's 15.04. These codes actually go into effect automatically on January 1 of 2014. What you'll notice is that I made a mistake and I started this process a little bit late. So with this being the first reading, and you'll have a second reading in January, and then 30 days, we'll be going about a month and a half without it actually being incorporated into our municipal code. Again, it's a formality for us to put it into our municipal code. It makes it a little bit easier for Mike Chambliss to do some code enforcement actions if necessary, but nevertheless, these codes actually do come into effect regardless on January 1st of 2014, just by the fact that it's the state. So if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. If not, I'm recommending that you read by title only, waive full reading, and introduce ordinance number 1096.
Okay. At this time, we'll open it up for public hearing. Are there any members of the audience that would like to speak on this?
Keith Snow.
Council, share one, guys. For one, when I came to me before, when my chairman want to implement to the people, and I took and Victor agreed, right? In my water bill, and take out person that does water bill. You guys say you guys send a letter to people like.
Mr. Snow, this is about the upgrading the code.
I know
Do you have a
about upgrading the
question,
code, but
statement on
we're
that?
supposed to do a workshop and a water bill. You guys said in the council, and we never got in a workshop to educate the people.
This is not about that. This is about the building code. Mr. Snow.
I know that, but I'm saying, when you guys do bring it up, make sure you get, when you guys can do that.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
No.
No. This time, we're going to close it for close public hearing. Move forward to item E2.
I'm sorry, Mr.
do we
Mayor. We need a motion to read by title only, waive the full reading, and introduce.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Move forward to item E2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. Good evening. The applicant is requesting the City Council to consider a proposal to pre-zone a 19.49 acre site. It's a prerequisite to future annexation of the city of the site to the city in the low-density residential performance overlay zoning district. The property is located between Southside Road, Ladd Lane to the east, and San Benito Street to the west. On November 21st, 2013, last month, the Planning Commission approved resolutions recommending to the City Council the approval of the environmental document, the mitigative negative declaration, and also a resolution approving the pre-zone, recommending it to the City Council. And that's why we're here today before you. The City of Hollister City Council authorized the initiation of this pre-zone application at its regular meeting, City Council meeting of August 15, 2011.
A mitigated negative declaration was prepared for the proposed project and circulated for the 30-day public review period. And with this, staff recommends that the City Council hold a public hearing, adopt resolution number 2013-210, adopting the mitigated negative declaration for pre-zone 2011-2, and approving the mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Read by title only, waive full reading, and introduce ordinance number 1097, an ordinance of the City of Hollister to amend Title 1724-250 of the zoning code of the Hollister Municipal Code to pre-zone property for annexation, and schedule a second reading and adoption of the ordinance for the January 6, 2014 City Council meeting. Are there any questions for staff?
No. At this time, I'm going to open it for public hearing.
Keith Snow. Marty Richmond.
Good evening again, Marty Richmond from Hollister. I have no problem with the request. I just ask that, in addition to this, we just make sure that we get all this, I'll call it claptrap, the claptrap on the tax issues and who gets the money. Make sure we are solid on that, because people have been trupsing into the county meetings, everybody claiming they got promises for this and promises for that. You know how that goes. So this is not the responsibility of the people making the application to make sure that's straight. They get told how much they have to give, and whatever the number it is, that's what they do. It's really a government responsibility to establish those fees and make sure that both sides of the fence are happy with those fees and that we don't allow the applicant, who has no control over it, to get stuck in the middle of some big fight over the fees. So I hope you will get the opportunity to direct staff to make sure we are absolutely up to date and solid, because sometimes those slip through the crack. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
No others.
We don't have any other speakers.
Correct.
At this time, I'm going to close public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, just for clarification, I mean, Marty brings up a good point. I think, didn't we have an update to the policy, or, I mean, I can't recall. I know we did something.
I think, I assume, Marty, are you talking about the property tax sharing agreement?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, yeah, so the first one was adopted in 1999. It got revised, I believe, in 2010. They're 10-year agreements.
Okay.
There was an applicant for a county aid project that was annexed into the city of Hollister that went to the county recently and requested a reduced fee. I believe that the county did grant that. I think what that's done now is that's kind of opened up the door between the city and the county to reopen the property tax sharing agreement and make some adjustments to the annexation fee per unit at the county side. I think we're just now kind of starting those discussions. But what you have in place right now is essentially each unit that's built in the city of Hollister that was recently annexed pays about $9,500 to the county per door or per unit. So, and what they've done is they've asked for a reduction in that cost.
Okay, so why are we, I'm sorry, if the agreement is a 10-year agreement, why are, so we're revisiting it?
Honestly, we don't really care. From the city's perspective, the city's responsibility only is to collect the fee at the time of a building permit issuance, and then just more or less just take the money and transfer it to the county. It's not ours. We didn't establish the fee. It's something that was based on a fiscal neutrality study, and that's what it was determined to be. So.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilmember Scatini.
Why is the property going down to a low-density residential performance overlay? Explain that to me.
Absolutely, Councilmember Scatini. Right now, we're asking for a pre-zone based on what the 2005 general plan has designated this area. So in 2005, the general plan was adopted, basically designating all these different designations: low density, medium density, high density. And it was determined that on this particular area, if that property was ever annexed into the city of Hollister between 2005 and 2023, the length of our general plan, it would be low-density residential, consistent to what's the surrounding neighborhoods and so forth. So it's basically 1 to 8 units per net acre that's allowed in the low-density residential. Usually the zoning requires a minimum lot size of about 5,500 square feet on these low-density residential lots.
Okay, thank you. I understand now.
Councilmember Friend? I have no questions. Is there a motion from council?
Motion to approve resolution 2013-210.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Move forward to item.
We need to read by title only, waive the full reading, and
Oh,
introduce.
excuse me, I'm sorry, yeah. That was the second part. Read by title only, waive full reading, and introduce ordinance number 1097.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Move forward to item F1.
Thank you, Mayor. If you recall, a couple months ago, what I tried to do is come to the City Council and adopt a resolution establishing a policy to reduce the sewer treatment impact fees for age-restricted units. It was brought to my attention at that time it's probably better for us not to just adopt the policy, but go ahead and establish an actual fee for age-restricted units and small bedroom or one-bedroom units. Currently, we base our fee based on 3.51 occupants per dwelling unit, which is how we determine the number of occupants per residential unit, which has established the sewer treatment fee. Based on past precedent and kind of industry standard is that age-restricted units, 55 and older, one-bedroom units, have technically a occupant level of about 1.67 occupants per dwelling unit. What staff is recommending then, of course, is that we reduce our fee for those age-restricted units to essentially 47.5% of whatever the treatment fee is for a single-family resident here in the city of Hollister. What you have also is Deb Mall, our city attorney, wanted to make sure that this resolution and the sewer treatment impact fees were noticed appropriately. So we have published the notice on November 8th, 22nd, and December 6th, which meets the requirements of the California the government section code that regulates impact fees or fee schedules. So if you have any question, I'd be more than happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, staff is recommending the adoption of Resolution 2013-211.
Do we have any speakers?
Sorry, Keith Snow.
On that part, if you would look at have a lawyer to look at, make sure that on the hookup fees, hookup fee, and water hookup fees, make sure you get $20 a hookup fee. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other speakers?
No.
Councilmember Friend, do you have any questions?
Yeah, Billy, if I remember right, we've done this before for other units.
Yes, sir. We have done it on a couple of occasions, Vista Meadows, and we also, although the project is not built yet, is part of a performance agreement with the Miller and Ferreira project, or Estancia, Silver Oaks. There's a lot of different names floating around, but yes. So what this does is this essentially takes that part out of the equation. It's not a negotiated issue anymore. It just becomes part of our fee schedule. So.
Councilmember Scatini?
No, we, like I say, this has been done before.
Yes, sir.
It's a precedent, and I think it's a good idea. I think it's, I think for the 55 years, I'll be there pretty quick. Why are you laughing out there? I think it's a good idea, and I'm glad to see it's on the agenda, on the resolution.
Councilmember Gomez?
I don't know if I want to comment on the item or Robbie's statement. Still indecisive. I was just kidding. I have no issues with this. I support it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. I don't have any issues with this item.
I move that we approve Resolution 2013-12.
I'm sorry?
I second that.
Okay.
That's
All
what I'm trying
in
to say.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item E2 or F2, I will recuse myself from this conversation and pass the gavel to Vice Mayor Scatini. Thank you.
Okay, resolution 2013-212. Any speakers on that?
Keith Snow.
I'd like to say, but where's this is which about what happened?
Not sure. If you would like, Vice Mayor Scatini, let me give just a brief report on the contract that you have in front of you. We had a special study session back in, what was it, November, providing me direction to go ahead and put this together and bring it to you as soon as possible. This is a contract that we have with the Hollister Downtown Association to put on the motorcycle event, the motorcycle rally event in 2014. It is going to be a 3-day event, July 4th, 5th, and 6th. The area is slightly larger than it was during the 2013 rally. Basically goes from Monterey. I'll start by saying it's south of 4th Street, east of Monterey, north of South, and actually west of Sally Street. So it's added that next extra block over there all the way down. I believe you should have a little exhibit in the contract. The key deal points with it, there are probably some speakers here that want to talk, and we can go through each of the deal points, but the big factor for the city of Hollister, myself specifically, was the fee for the services that the city will be providing, police and whatnot, is $182,000 this year. Or for next year. $50,000 of that is due and payable on June 1st, 2014. Another $50,000 is due and payable on June 30th, 2014. So we will have essentially $100,000 before the rally, and then the balance of the amount owed, which is $82,000, shall be due and payable prior to July 30th of 2014. So roughly a month after. Those revenues really is a revenue based to pay for police and emergency and some yard services. Revenues that are generated from business licenses and building permits are not part of this contract. That's a completely separate issue. There are some punitive damages, I will say, in the contract for trash. The city manager or his or her designee has the ability to make sure that the sanitation is kept up, both solid and in the porta potties, so that if there is a situation that arises, we can get people out there to mitigate that as soon as possible. It is over and above what's ever in the contract amount. We've had several discussions with the HDA about this. I think they're okay with everything for the most part. I believe that the city's done their job in making sure that we're protected. And with that, I would go ahead and like I said, there's probably some people that want to speak on it, and we can go through it from there.
Okay. You got any speaker cards?
I have no speakers cards, other than Keith Snow.
I was completely wrong.
Yeah. One thing about this house rally, like I mentioned before, when Bill told me that on the phone a while back, and you guys embarrassed me in front of people, you guys create revenue, but you guys might not spend money on rally. One thing I have a people's commission committee, right, and get involved, because I have good ideas. What I'm working on now is for the rally, in any event that we have to create revenue, to make money. So you roll the money you make to pay the fees that you're spending. See, we need to create ideas, anything, right, like a sport program. We need that back, another thing, for more security, for that wants to do that on like DR checkpoints and all that, to make the city safer. But we need to do, like I said, we need good band here, right, to spend money and charge $2.50 for, I said, if you want to drink beer, right, then they should pay to watch the band or drink corn, and now you build all these new border things, right, charge $2.50 to drink the beer. The $2.50 the person want to drink beer, they got paid, right? And they use that money for the rally. That's called creating revenue. So money making, you put over there. Why we can spend money? We're up there, got to use it and ideas to create revenue, right? Instead of spending money and waste that spending money. That's what we need to do. Thank you. Have a good day.
Okay. We got no speaker cards?
No.
Okay, and back to the city, to the council. Victor, you have some questions?
Yeah, really quick. You can go to Ray, if you, Councilmember Friend, if you want, really
Go
quick.
ahead, Ray.
I don't have any questions about it. My only comment is we need to get this done. We need to get on with this. We're going to be here in April looking at 2014 still, right?
Yeah.
And I will also say this, as Victor scans the contract, looking for a good question for me, I will, as long as it's easy.
It's going to get bad for you right now.
Thanks. Challenge. Okay. Really, one of the things that I think we were trying to do is, with the resolution and sort of the agreement is, it's understood that we want to have a long-term arrangement with the HDA. What you're seeing in front of you really is a one-year contract, and I believe that we can begin working on having a multi-year deal with the Hollister Downtown Association. One of the difficult parts for me was, as we've expanded the area a little bit, we've gone to 3 days. I want to make sure that we know where we are financially and what actually it is costing us to do this. It's hard to take that number and then project it out, because I believe that there's going to be a desire in the future to expand the Raleigh area even further. And so what we want to be in the position of is, I want to make sure that the Hollister Downtown Association understands that, with the resolution, the way it's written, it's intended to be, we are committed to the Raleigh. I think we're committed to doing it with them. I don't want them to look at it as a one-year contract, even though technically it is. But I want them to know that, our goal is that maybe you come back in a few months if we can do a multi-year deal, or immediately following the next rally. I don't want to wait till December again. I certainly didn't want to wait till December this year, and it happened. And all I can do is hope that we do a better job, either prior to the rally or just after the rally, to address the long-term issues there. So, did that give you enough time?
Nope, still need a few more minutes. Can you tell me really quick, Bill?
Sure.
And I actually had this question before you made that statement.
Yeah, right.
I think we've had enough time to kind of figure out because obviously the licensing part is separate from this, and it will continue to be separate. But do we have a figure on what was
generated
from?
I think it was $37,000 last year on business licenses and building permits.
For the rally?
For the rally.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, okay, well.
That was over and above the $140,000 that Worldwide Dynamics paid this year.
Paid into it,
Yeah.
okay, all right. So just for public record, and I just want to make sure that we all understand, I know that there's a lot of, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I've talked to Brenda and others about this, but there's a lot of uncertainty when you're working with a government agency and 5 or 4, whatever, elected officials up here when it comes to issues like this, because it's a sensitive issue. I mean, some people are going to be supportive of it, some people are not, but I think overall this year has, through good management, has shown to be that it is and could potentially be even a bigger event and more successful than it was this year, though I think it was fairly successful this year. But it's hard as an elected board to forecast what the council, the future mayor and the council are going to do on this item. But I just want to reinforce that we did make a decision that we want to continue working with the Hollister Downtown Association for a period of 10 years in the future, and have them be the hopefully the recipient of some nice revenue in the future when that does happen. So I do also share the concerns, not concerns, but what could potentially change, because obviously the layout of it has changed and could potentially grow. Hopefully, if it grows, that means something good is happening, and we want to definitely see that happen. But obviously, with that, there are going to be changes to the financial figures, as Bill mentioned, and as I'm sure Chief Westrick is looking into, as things change. So I do want to make sure that we do understand that we are committed. This council is committed to this rally for the next 10 years, and we do want to continue working with the Hollister Downtown Association. And I know that they do understand, and Brenda and her board all understand that. As this changes, so will those figures change, and I don't know what else we could do or what else we could change to set that even more in stone. But we are definitely committed to this thing and to continue to be partners with you folks. So, thank you.
Okay, I just want to make a couple of comments. First of all, has the Downtown Hall Association has the contract already, Bill? Do they have the contract?
Yes.
They have the contract.
Yeah.
They know what's in it, right?
Yes.
Okay. The second thing is, I'm hoping that you're getting it together because it's a lot of work, and you're starting. It's going to be in January in a few weeks. And last year, we started in January, and we worked our butts off to get it done on the 4th. So I hope you, Brenda, I know you're pretty good at it. I know you'll get things in shape here. So that's all I have. I have a motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2013-212.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Done. That's done. Nacho.
Okay, at this point, we will move forward with item F3.
Thank you, Mayor. This is one of those classic ones. If it's a good idea, it's mine. If it's not, it's somebody else's. Staff has recommended that we cancel the city council meeting of January 6th. The way that the holidays fall, especially Christmas, it's usually right around the time that Jerry is doing agendas and trying to get those packets out to the city council. We tried to put as much items on tonight's agenda as we possibly could. The only items that we know for sure that would be on the January 6th item is sort of the second readings of the ordinances that you adopted tonight. None of those ordinances are really urgency type of issues. So again, staff is recommending that the city council cancel the council meeting of January 6th.
Don't blame me.
Well, that's why I'm saying that. I'm trying to figure out what the temperature is in the room.
Are there any speakers?
No, unless Keith Snow wants to talk on this.
He wants to talk.
I think we're still going to be here anyway, so, right?
We will be here, yes.
Yeah, the council will be here anyway. So.
One thing people forgot, I guess what day that January 6th on Monday is our main Christmas that day. So all the people, like, I know a lot of main people, big shots from Santa Barbara and all that, Earl Grove and all that. So that day is our main Christmas day. That's what day is. Yeah, take it off.
Okay, are there any other speakers?
No.
Councilmember Friend?
I don't understand the problem.
You know, the problem of
Everybody else has to work those days.
no, it's not necessarily a problem. And if you want to have a meeting on the 6th, we'll have a meeting on the 6th.
Oh, no, I don't want that.
Oh, you were just wondering why there's a problem. I see. It's Jerry's idea.
I take full responsibility.
Councilmember Scatini?
I have no questions.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2013-213.
Let me just throw in my little comment here.
Oh, wow. All right.
I think a little less government is a good thing. So I think actually it's probably something we should look at each year to give some people a break from city council. So,
In the city of San Jose, they actually take the month of July off. And as a staff member, I like it. I'm just throwing that out
Might be
there.
even better idea. Councilmember Gomez, you had a motion?
Yes.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Motion. Hey, Merry Christmas. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's move on to
No,
item.
thank you. Seriously, thank you. Like a lot.
Yes.
So the public understands, employees are still working. They're not getting the whole week off, so. Move forward to item G1, report from city council members regarding their committees. Councilmember Gomez.
I did not have any committee meetings.
Councilmember Scatini.
I did not have any meetings this month.
Councilmember Friend. I do not have any reports either. We'll move forward to item G2, any informational reports from council members and additional staff. Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, I just want to just take the time and wish everybody happy holidays and Merry Christmas to whatever holiday you celebrate, and to ask folks to drive safely and as you travel around the state and wherever you're going to be heading, or if you're going to be staying here locally. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everybody. And as I was telling Jerry earlier, I plan on starting shopping soon. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Scatini?
Ditto with what Victor just said. I have nothing else to say, but I say the same thing he just said. Hope the chief has a nice Christmas and get your house built yet?
Nope.
Councilmember Friend?
I got one, I'd like to thank everybody that showed up Thursday night.
Oh,
For the awarding the keys to the gentleman from Homes from Our Heroes. It was an outstanding crowd. It was very warm. It was very nice to see that many people out there to welcome that young man and his family. Now that he actually has a family to Hollister and to the new house. So it's fantastic. Secondly, like Victor said, I'd like to wish everybody a good holiday season, Merry Christmas, and whatever else you celebrate in a couple of weeks. So have everybody have a safe and sane New Year's also.
Thank you. I'd like to take the time to tell the public and all of you a beautiful and sad story that happened in our city recently. On November 30th, a young, beautiful lady, Dida Becerra, had a wish, her last wish, to come back to Hollister and celebrate her birthday with friends and family. And she was at the hospital in Stanford, and Mickey Luna, Vince Luna, along with Make-A-Wish Foundation, put that wish together. They brought her in an ambulance here. She wanted to be here. And we had the party for her at the vault. Now, this was the night of lights on, so she arrived right before the parade started. And the ambulance came in, and there was a big crowd out there, so we took the microphone from the HDA. Thank you very much there, too. And this crowd of probably, I would say, 300 to 400 people started singing happy birthday to her. Well, being a young lady, she was a little embarrassed because the plan was to go into the vault and change there. Well, they brought her dress into the ambulance, changed. She stepped out, proud as could be, and the whole crowd erupted again and started clapping and singing happy birthday in both English and Spanish. And she refused to go in on a wheelchair. She wanted to walk on her own, and she did. And then she danced the night away. Enjoyed every minute. You should have seen that, her beautiful face. Unfortunately, past Monday, she passed away. And it was very sad. And again, Mickey and Vince put people together, and we had her celebration of life at the vault. And it was good to see the family celebrating that life. And Mickey and Vince, I want to personally thank you for all you did, so thank you. You know, we don't know when cancer is going to strike, but obviously it does. Recently, Councilmember Scatini, Supervisor Dela Cruz, and I met with a young champion. Many of you might know who he is, Robert Guerrero, the Ghost. You might have seen him on HBO fighting for titles, world famous. Well, we had a meeting and we started talking about what he'd like to do in his community because he's going to be moving here soon. And he told us the story about how his wife had cancer. And his project was what they call Be a Match. And his wife's match actually came from Germany. That's how rare a match is. That's how important it is to pull people together. So he'd like to know, or he wanted to know, if we could pull something together for him. So we started a group that's going to make this happen on January 11th. He will be here to help with that event. We're asking for your help. We're going to be having a volunteer meeting on Thursday, this Thursday night at 6 o'clock at the vault. So we're asking for everyone to come out and help. That match, that person you bring just might be the person that saves a family member's life. All it is a swab they take, and hopefully someday you can save somebody's life. So I put that flyer out there on the counter. Please help us out. This is so important. And it could, again, it could save a life just by a match. So please make the time to come out. And again, that volunteer meeting is on this Thursday at 6 o'clock. And the donor drive will be Saturday, January 11th at 3 o'clock at the vault. So if you could help out, we'd appreciate it. If it's okay with the council members, later tonight I'd like to adjourn the meeting in memory of Erenida Rosetta.
Sure.
That's all I have to say. City manager.
Nothing to report.
City attorney.
I'd like to thank the city council for having me as your interim city attorney for the last 6 months. It's been a pleasure to serve you while you're in between city attorneys, and happy holidays to everyone.
Same to you.
Same to you. Police chief.
I'll be brief. I've had a lot of proud moments in my career, but one of the proudest was seeing the mayor give Sergeant Juergens the key to the city of the night. That was pretty amazing event. I was really impressed with the whole community. Very amazing. Today I got notified from the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children that Hollister PD was nominated for Outstanding Achievement in 2013. So we should be hearing in the next few weeks. That's a pretty prestigious thing to occur to us. And then also, we'll be out in force for DUIs and drug driving. We would hope that during the holiday season, the next couple of weeks, that we would all be responsible and have designated drivers if we're going to go out and drink and drive, okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you and congratulations. City clerk.
I really have nothing, pardon my cough tonight, but I'd like to wish everyone happy holidays.
Thank you very much. Let's move forward with item G3.
Thank you, Mayor. I was actually just looking for Clay. I guess I'll try to do this as quickly as I can. I think we received a request by the VFW and folks for waiving the public assembly permit fees over at the Vets building. The fee, I believe, and Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, is it's $100, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And generally that fee is basically to offset the cost for the review of the public assembly permit. That usually goes to the police chief, the fire chief,
Code enforcement,
city
clerk.
And the city clerk. It's a pretty nominal fee. The veterans are requesting that the fee be waived in full. Staff is recommending against that. One is, I believe, that we don't want it to necessarily set off a precedent for other organizations to request that, and really there is a cost associated with processing those permits. So with that said, I don't know if Jerry has any speaker cards, but again, I think staff's recommendation is to not waive the fee at this time.
Did you say we do or do not have any speaker cards?
I do, but I had one thing to add. I actually pulled out my permits issued for the last 2 years. In 2013 and 2012, there were 5 permits issued to both the American Legion and the VFW. Total, 5 per year.
Okay, let's hear the
Speaker's
speakers.
card, Joe Love.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council, and everybody else. It may be a nominal fee, but that fee is $100 that we could use somewhere else for veterans, because that's what we do is for veterans. We don't have to pay for a permit for food, for the health permit. There's a few other permits that we don't have to pay for, and sure, it's $500 over a year. If we have more functions, it could be $1,000 a year. But you know, we're a nonprofit. We're not here to make money, and you know, it's part of being a team. You know, to give and take a little bit. Because whenever the veteran comes in, we don't say, well, you know, we've given you $20 this week. We can't give you $20 now because you know we don't have it. But the thing is, the point I'm trying to get across is very nominal. But it's kind of like, well, you know, we're taking care of this building for you, and it's helping us to you know, do things. We take no money from the building when we manage it. We do put every dime that we make off of that building back into that building. You know, and the $100 again is very nominal, and I wish that the folks up here would look at it a little bit different than it's a few minutes of time for the chief to look at it. It's a few minutes time for somebody else to look at it. We spend a lot of time doing what we do, helping our vets. And by the way, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Do we have other speakers?
Keith Snow?
My dad, professor. My grandpa is a veteran, professor. My dad, grandpa was a professor and veteran. All my brothers is retired, veteran, right? And I was wondering, I announced the councilman out there. I'll write you to right now. Part of it, $25, quarter of it, at the 100, right? So I tell you guys, well, I'll get my check back. I'll write a check for $25, because I'm not rich, right? But I tell you guys, for the other 3 parts, that's what you guys say. And the other ones, Jerry, $25, be 3 more. I mean, I'll pay the 100, but I'm not gonna let the veterans go like that. They pay the fees. You guys talking or what? No talk? It's only $100. I'm not rich, but I'll support the veterans. What check? $25? Chief? Right.
Marty Richmond?
Marty Richmond. I wasn't going to speak on this, but an idea how to solve this easily came to me. I think you ought to continue to charge the fee, but since the veterans are doing the building, I think you ought to give them the fee back after you charge it. So you collect the fee and then give it to them to defray the cost of their work of planning for those public meetings at the building. Or you could just waive it, and then you won't have to handle the money. I don't know if you've been following the newspaper. I hate to bring public disputes in here. I don't know if you've been following the newspaper, but have you seen the budget deal that they made in the Congress, both sides? So I'm not blaming either side. So this is not political. Have you seen the budget deal? The budget deal, to pay for the budget, they have said they are freezing the COLA 1% a year down for every retired veteran under age 62. This does nothing for me. I do not lose a dime, so I'm not up here complaining because I'm going to be 72 next month. But I'm just telling you, you just went over, saw Sergeant Jurgens. The price most veterans pay, you can't see it the way you can see it on Sergeant Jurgens. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers?
I may want to add to kind of what the kind of ride Marty's coattails or vice versa is that keep in mind with the contract that the council has or the city has with the veterans, we do give the veterans $20,000 a quarter to help operate the building. And you know, I'm not exactly sure how the financials are going to work for them this first year, but I would assume that if this $100 becomes a burden for them after this first year, you may want to consider it next year. But given the fact that we are contributing about $80,000 to the building, maybe that's sort of can help pay offset that cost.
Well, let me ask, let the council ask their questions. Mr. Snow, please. Councilmember Gomez?
I don't have any questions. I do, you know, this is kind of an interesting issue because, number one, I don't believe in waiving these fees for anybody, to be completely honest with you. These are fees that everybody pays, and I think that they're fair. But my biggest concern was what this precedent that this would set on other nonprofits in the community. And so I thought about that for a few minutes, and I thought to myself, okay, no way would I support some waiving these fees because then everybody else is just going to come in here and say, oh, I'm a nonprofit, I don't make any money. Though I don't agree with that because nonprofits make a ton of money. There's executive directors that get paid tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to be executive directors of nonprofits. So, you know, by nonprofits are definitely not nonprofits, sorry. But I do understand that you are running the facility. So I think that is your leverage. That's why I would actually support waiving the fees for you guys, because you do operate the building. And obviously, you know, I'm trying to look at this as a look at this from a fiscal and, you know, professional perspective, because if I take into account that you are veterans, then it's like a slam dunk, obviously. You know, we're thankful for everything that you guys have done, the sacrifices that every veteran has made, so it's hard to kind of not have that soft spot in your heart, obviously, for everything that you guys have done for us. So, so after weighing those options, I mean, the way I would support this is, and the only reason I would support this is because you folks are doing the maintenance and operations of the building. So I would support it because it's kind of like what Marty said, it's pointless. You know, we just get it back, we'll only give you $79,500 next year. What's the point? You know what I mean? The one question I guess I do have is, so if the fees, because you guys are obviously trying to recoup the costs of operating, and I hope you do make money off of the operation of the building, you know? I mean, we definitely want the veterans to be able to, raise some money that way, but is the waiving of this fee, Joe, going to increase the amount of events that you're going to have? Or I mean, I have to ask the question, because now that the fee is waived, if I could, Mr. Mayor, can I ask Mr. Love to?
Sure.
Yeah, okay. Yes, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry about that.
Well, first of all, none of the money that we get from the building goes into any Legion fund or into the VFW fund. Every dollar that we make goes back into that building. We take no money, period. Any other money that we get for our functions is through fundraisers, dinners, and stuff like that. And every nickel and dime that we can scrape up, we'd like to hang on to it.
Absolutely.
And the thing is that if you give us $78,900 next year, you just took it away from the building. You didn't take it away from us. you know, and the thing is that we're trying to keep it in our end of it, you know.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I said, I mean, I'm supportive of the idea because you operate the building. Whether we're going to get it, it's $500. Whether we get it back or not, I'm not, you know, terribly concerned about that. But at the same time, you know, I mean, I don't want to have to. We don't want to waive these fees and then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, I just want you folks to remember that, you know, this is being done because of. At least I'm supportive of it because you are in responsibility to, you know, you're being responsible with your own building that ultimately you are the veterans of the sole owners of.
The one thing that everybody should look at, you know, it's, you know, sure, it's $100, but again, we do stuff for veterans such as Brian Juergens. We have our riders that go out and we make family runs every day for and motorcycle runs for deceased veterans. You know how much a person in American Legion at the top end makes inside of my post? We work for $0. $0. You know, there's a lot of nonprofits, their top people that's in charge of it, they get paid pretty good wages, you know, and the thing is that we're asking for a truly nonprofit that doesn't make, and their staff doesn't make any money. You know, because we're here for our veterans.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. Thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, like I said, I mean, those are. I'll support this, and primarily for the reasons I stated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Scutini.
Okay, the way I look at it, I'm supporting it because I think the veterans deserve it. And like you say, Joe, the money you make goes for fundraiser and stuff goes to the group, and not from that $20,000 that our mayor, not mayor, but our CEO. But anyway, no, I think it's a good idea, and I support it, and I support it from day one. That's it.
Councilmember Friend.
Well, I agree with what you're saying, and I support this. I don't think we should charge a veteran anything for anything they do. They shouldn't even pay parking tickets, in my idea. We have a contract that they run the building. They don't get paid anything for running the building. Yes, we do put $20,000 a quarter in the fund to maintain the building. All of their people are volunteers. They got an electrician in there today. I was there. 2 guys working on fixing the ballast and the lighting in the kitchen. They were free. They were volunteers. They didn't get paid for their time. The veterans had to buy, or the fund, excuse me, bought the ballast and the lights. So it just seems to be the other solution might be they're a nonprofit. Why don't we just give them $10,000 a year? We give other nonprofits money. Let's just donate them $10,000 a year, and that offsets the cost of their. And I have to waive these fees. We'll pay them for you.
No.
So maybe you ought to come back to us at budget time, like the nonprofits do, and ask us for money. Be one way to solve it. But I think we need to support this just to support the vets.
Thank you. So, so I'm clear. Why are we talking about fees for all events, weddings, quinceañeras, or what type of events are we talking about? For veteran, okay, so we're going to hit you when it's a veterans event, but nothing else. You know, I look at this as, look, that's your building, that is your business, that's your home, and I know you're respected enough to take care of it, so I respect you enough to let you take care of it. Whether it's, you know, $100, I think it's going to probably cost us more money, is with the chief having to do research on if any of the older veterans are causing trouble in town. So I take care of your building. I trust you. Is there a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we waive the public assembly permit fees for the American Legion and the VFW period in their building.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you very much, all you veterans. Move forward to item G4. Uh-oh. A presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council.
It's 9 o'clock for a presentation, a little late.
You put me on the agenda here, so yes, I ultimately respect the last item on the agenda. Appreciate that. If you give us a moment to get the PowerPoint up, while Adam's doing that, this is Adam Goldstone. He's the Capital Projects Manager for the County of San Benito. I'm Steve Wittry, the Public Works Administrator for the County of San Benito.
I make a motion we change this to January the 6th.
Last item. Last item. January 6th.
Yeah. So that's coming up. I'll just talk a little briefly about history. What we're talking about in this item is the potential for the closure of Nash Road. This actually starts many, many years ago, but I'll just short circuit to the latest go-around of this, which is about 3.5, 4 years ago. The County of San Benito has been working with its Parks and Rec Commission, as well as the community, to try to develop a river park trail that would go along the San Benito River. The trail would be something we've been part of a nature trail, and would encompass various points of interest or resting points, as it were, as the trail goes across that property. One of the areas that became of interest to the Parks and Rec Commission was the area directly behind the San Benito High School. The San Benito High School, there's approximately about 50 acres or so that would make a great location for a node in a park, a longer park trail. Essentially, this is the layout of what it could look like. This would be a node which would have sports fields, it would have recreational activities, a whole myriad of possibilities out there. The San Benito County Parks and Rec Commission led the way and undertook a process to get public involvement and public input as to what kind of a regional park might actually come to fruition at that particular location. Through a process that went about 2 years, there was a master plan that was developed, and the master plan had a lot of community input. What you see on the screen here is kind of a snapshot of what that steering committee and the Parks and Rec Commission worked on. This actual plan was accepted by the Board of Supervisors. It was not approved. They did authorize the plan to undergo a CEQA documentation, and that process is underway right now. The other thing that they did authorize was staff to begin to work with the various property owners and see if we could acquire some of that property to actually construct this park once the CEQA documentation was completed. To that end, staff has been meeting with various property owners. We actually had a situation where the property in red became unavailable to us. That property was pulled out of the potential. It actually is now housing a solar farm that has a lease of about 20 years out there. The hope is that, since we think in long-term progress, that at some point, 20 years hence, that property still could be incorporated into the regional park. We want to think of these things as happening over lifetimes, so 20 years is a very small period of time. So we have that area shaded in red right now because it's unavailable right now, and we're not pursuing it any longer. The area in green, we actually were pursuing as well. It was owned by a private party. We were actually able to come to terms on that particular property and made an offer, and that was accepted, and that property should close escrow in about a day or two, actually. So that would become a property of San Benito County in the next, like I said, day or so. The third property that we wanted to acquire is actually owned by the San Benito High School, and it falls directly behind the high school property. It's kind of outlined out there. It's 47 acres that we're looking to acquire. The Board of Supervisors, once again, gave us the authority to begin negotiations with the high school, and that process is underway. One of the things that the high school really is concerned about, as you are all well aware, is the safety of its students. They appreciate the potential for the park nearby their facility, but of utmost importance to them is the safety and crossing of Nash Road. One of the deal points that they were talking about including into this deal for acquisition of the property into the county's park system would be to somehow incorporate the closure of Nash Road into that process. So about 2 years ago or so, I actually came before this body, the high school district as well as the Board of Supervisors, and came up with a proposal that may work to help alleviate a lot of the concerns. If this park is going to be successful, it's going to have an access point in the near future. Ultimately, that access point could be Westside Boulevard, but Westside Boulevard, as you are well aware, is 15, maybe 20 years out, depending on how development is rely upon traffic impact fees for funding. And I don't believe that's your top priority right now, and I know it's not the county's top priority. They have some other roads, such as 156 expansion and so forth. So that West Side Boulevard project is likely, at least like I said, 15, possibly 20 years out. The hope is that this park could come to fruition before then. It would need to have some kind of access point. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Adam, that's fine. It would need to have some kind of access point to allow the use until West Side Boulevard could be brought in to fulfill that need as a true entryway. What we've done is we've come up with a sketch of a road alignment that could work, that would allow call it another mini bypass or a bypass around the backside of the high school, which would allow the high school to operate, actually would allow the county to acquire and begin development of the park that falls south of that line that you see there. The gray block is a potential parking lot. There's another area that's kind of shaded lighter brown, which would also be identified as a parking lot as well to help serve that park that would sit down towards the riverside there. The road would be constructed in such a manner that would allow the traffic to be diverted from Nash Road to the San Benito Street extension. The traffic studies and environmental document, as I said, is underway right now. We actually have a draft that came in late this afternoon. We haven't even had a chance to really review it, but we're looking at it right now to try to look at what the traffic actually would do if this road was constructed and potentially if that closure at Nash would occur. So the reason why I'm here tonight is to try to get some feedback from the City Council as to whether they think this is an effort that deserves further attention and deserves the expenditure of your staff's time. The County Board of Supervisors obviously is fully behind this project, and they've authorized us to expend time. The next steps in this process would be to meet with city staff and to come up with basically, call it a statement of intent, call it a memorandum of understanding, call it basically a plan to allow this project to go forward and certain conditions to be met that would accomplish the needs for the county of developing a park, the needs of the high school, which would allow the closure of that block essentially, and the needs of the city to ensure that traffic that utilizes Nash Road would not impact the residents to the north of Nash Road. So what I'm asking tonight is basically if you give the authorization for your staff, like I said, to work with us to come up with a plan that could accomplish this to everybody's satisfaction. One of the things I would like to hear some comments from you and some potential deal points from the council if this is something you wanted to pursue, and also from the public. I think there might be some people who have stuck out here tonight to talk about this a little bit. But like I said, I think that this really is a win-win-win situation. The county would be able to acquire some more land for a more reasonable park that could be established down there. The high school would cease to have this issue that's been long-standing for them. I've been in the community since '97, and it's been a problem since I've been here, and I know it's been a problem long before then. And it would actually alleviate some of the issues that the city has in terms of the traffic flow and traffic that comes around the intersection of San Benito and Nash. The reason, actually, another reason why we're here, just for the general public's knowledge, is the city limit line goes directly, not directly down the middle of Nash, but it does go down Nash. So both county and city have jurisdiction of the road that's in front of the area in red there, which we're talking about closing. Any questions?
Let's, do we have any speaker cards?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Ray Rodriguez?
Good evening. I'm Ray Rodriguez. I'm from Hollister. I'm a trustee on the San Benito High School District. And more importantly, I'm a father of 7 graduates of San Benito High School who I shivered every day that I had to send them out to cross that road. I don't know. I'd invite any of you to come out during the change of class and cross that street, even though the addition of the stop signs that's happened recently has helped very much. I was very interested that Al DeVos earlier said what happens in schools affects our most precious resource, and that safety matters. And this is what we're talking about. And I think too often one of my pet peeves is that we forget that our teenagers probably need us more as a community now than when they were in their diapers. Definitely my teenagers, when I was parenting them, needed me more, and they could get in much more trouble as teenagers than they could as a toddler. And we forget about them. In grade school, we spend a lot of time nurturing our kids, and then they get to become teenagers, and we drive up in front of the school, and we open the door, and we kick them out, and we assume they can take care of themselves. I think as a community, we need to tell our teenagers that we still value them. And just some interesting facts. A study in 2007 was funded by the high school, and 11,500 crossings are made of that area on a regular school day. Then you throw in the nighttime activities and the lack of lighting in the area and the speed of which cars are traveling. And I'm amazed that over the 5 years of that study went back, there was only one accident a month on the average, which is still higher than the California standard or average for that rate. I think this fits in. You guys are working on safe roads and community safety. There's a grant out there to study that. I think this fits right in. It's beneficial to all. I think the district has done its due diligence in trying to participate and negotiate this. And I think, once again, the most important thing to me, we have streets in this community that we close for cans of tomatoes. But we don't have the resources, the want, or the desire, and I hope I'm not offensive, but I mean, I'm pretty emotional about this, or the integrity to close a road for a teenager, for 11,500 teenagers every day. So I'd like you to consider this wholeheartedly, participate as a community. This is one of those terrible things where several government agencies have to come to an agreement at the same time, which is a very difficult thing to do. But I think we're all up to the challenge. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bill Tiffany?
Good evening. My name is Bill Tiffany, and my address is 535 Monterey Street, or my working address. I'm another member of the San Benito County, or not San Benito County, but San Benito High School District Board of Trustees. I've been on that board for about 11 years now, probably too long. During that entire time, and with a number of different superintendents, the board has looked at different ways to deal with the Nash Road problem. As Ray eloquently said, for the high school, it has always been a safety issue. But it shouldn't be just a community, our high school issue, it should be a community issue. All of our kids attend that high school, or have attended that high school, or will attend that high school. Over the years, the high school has looked at different options. As all of us know, we've come up with some safety issues. We at one time looked at putting in a walkway overpass. That was absolutely prohibitively expensive because of, largely because of ADA requirements. We looked at the idea of perhaps temporary closures. We've improved the situation with the stop signs and with flashing lights, and we, of course, have crossing guards. But nevertheless, particularly based on what Ray has researched and can tell you about the number of crossings, the potential for some tragedy there is a day-to-day potential. And we have the ability right now to not only deal with that problem, but benefit the community at large with dedicating land back to this community that's going to be key to developing a park, which is also a much needed activity and space for all of our citizens. The idea of this trade coupled with the high school also giving to the county, I guess, the bypass for this roadway, again,
follow up on what Mr. Winfrey said is one of these basic overused terms of a win-win situation. It's a real benefit for all persons involved. And on top of everything else, it's going to, the plan would minimize what is a potential traffic problem. Yes, there's going to be a slight inconvenience, a slight delay for persons having to travel on this bypass as opposed to going down Nash Road. But I think that if you will find, if you talk to your constituents, these days, the vast majority of the community don't use Nash Road in the middle of the day because they know that there's going to be kids crossing and there's delays and there's traffic congestion. This is going to solve the congestion problem. The delay is going to be minimal, and in the long run, after a few months, people aren't going to notice at all. They're going to get used to doing it, and I believe they're going to come to like to do it. And as also is pointed out, it immediately can also serve the dual purpose of being an access point to this parkway. We need parks, we need safety for our children. This allows you folks to do both, so I would greatly encourage you to take this to the next step, complete this study as quickly as possible, and allow all of us as a community to really put something positive out there for the public. Thank you.
I got a question for Bill.
Yeah, Bill, can you hang on for a second? Councilmember Scatini has a question for you.
Okay, Bill, that we have the red, we want to block off Nash Road. Would that be year-round? When school's out, would that still be blocked?
That is our proposal.
Totally blocked, all times.
And now, you should understand that the part that's blocked off would still allow travel down West Street and Monterey Street. The only part that's proposed to be blocked is for that period, or that part between those two streets.
Monterey and West?
Monterey and West would still be operable. You'd have a right and left turn off of those two streets onto Nash. It's just that the through traffic would be prevented. And frankly, the reason that we believe that the best solution here is a total blockage, which is something that's been done in other communities like Watsonville. The reason is because it would cut down on man hours trying to deal with the situation. Even during the summertime, the high school has summer school activities. We have nighttime activities. And frankly, it would allow the high school to do some much-needed future planning. Hopefully, it would allow for a better community access with respect to our gym and some buildings we hope or we desperately need to build. So, yeah, that would be the proposal.
And my second question: when you come out on that bypass onto what's that street? Is that Union Road?
San Benito Extension.
Extension.
Right.
Right there when you come out, what was going to be there? A stop sign?
Now that's up to the professionals to tell you that. I know that there's going to have to be something there.
Yeah. You could have a problem there too at that intersection there.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure there's have to be traffic control of some sort. Sure.
We'll ask the expert there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
So basically what we're doing is we're having the traffic study being performed right now. Our gut instinct is that there will be either a stop sign or potentially even a roundabout at the intersection with Nash Street and this bypass. So at the top side up there would be either a stop sign or a roundabout to get traffic to go down this direction. And at the intersection down here at the other side, essentially we are priced it out as a signalized intersection, which would be a controlled stoplights, left turn pockets, and so forth to address that.
Let's. Do we have any more speaker cards before we
No.
ask too many questions?
I mean, like they said to say to the kids, say to the people, is that you guys invest with them and see like what stage you're asking for your ideas. So why don't you guys see if you can do that for them?
Thank you.
No others.
No other speaker cards? Okay. Councilmember Gomez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Questions?
I do. So I'm definitely interested, Steve, I guess you folks, the county is the one that's performing the traffic study in the area, okay? So I'm concerned and curious at the same time when it comes to what's going to happen. Okay, so if I'm traveling eastbound on Nash Road, and right now I hit the San Benito Street and I go downtown, okay, and I'm coming from the west, say the Del Rio Apartments. The only way, if that section there is blocked, my best way to get to downtown is going to be to cut through the residential areas.
Or West Side Boulevard.
Or West Side Boulevard. West Side Boulevard to, what is it, Line Street or?
To whichever it is accessing your point.
South.
South or
South
Line
Street.
or Fourth.
Okay.
Basically,
So
West
it's
Side
still,
Boulevard.
yeah, so it's still going to drive traffic into the residential areas. I'm no traffic expert, but common sense would tell me that a lot of the traffic that's flowing eastbound is going to go into the residential neighborhoods. So I'm curious to find out what those people think. You know, what are the people that live, and it's not my district, so I guess Councilmember Scatini, this is probably going to be of interest to you. I'm interested in finding out what the people that live, because I'm sure they're going to share their comments, right, during the study period or portion of it. I'm interested in finding out what those people think of it. Because I could, call me crazy, but check this out. So you could go around that whole bypass and hit a stop sign or roundabout, light, whatever. I don't know who's going to pay for that. But they're going to hit that on San Benito Street or a stop sign or a light on this side. So what's easier for me to do? Is it easier for me to hit West Street, go down to, I think it's A Street or something like that, go around to Monterey, and then come back around again? So what's the shorter distance? Going all the way around the school to this proposed park, or cutting the short distance around the high school? I mean, if I don't use that street very much. I went to San Benito High School for 4 years only, thank God. And and I agree with what Mr. Rodriguez said. I mean, there is a lot of pedestrian traffic crossing. I cross it every single day, at least 4 to 6 times every single day. So don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic there because of the school. But like I said, I mean, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't take that bypass. I would just go around the school. I would go down West Street and come back around, go to Monterey. It's the path of least resistance. It's the easiest way to get there. So my concern is going to be public comment and what these folks in that area are going to say. And I think Councilmember Scatini is going to be very interested in that as well. My concern with the bypass is both connection points. So at Nash Road and at San Benito Street. I don't really see us, maybe the argument could be made on Nash Road, but I don't see us, like you said, I think a signalized intersection is going to be a requirement there at that intersection. I don't see how we could safely put anything else up there. With access to the park, that's great. You know, I think that would be wonderful. I'm not sure what the phase-in portion or how the park's going to be phased in. I don't know if the county already has the money to pay for the maintenance of the park as well. I don't know if that's something that they've discussed, but that's interesting for us to know because it'll definitely let us know what kind of traffic to expect on this possible bypass. So, like I said before, I think we talked about this in the past. I'm interested in finding out what these residents are going to say. I'm interested in finding out what the traffic study is going to determine. I think for safety purposes, I agree, and I've seen other schools do it. I think Bill mentioned it. You know, other schools have done it. Absolutely, I've seen it done, and I've seen them actually use that old road for other purposes, meeting ground for, or whatever, you know. And I think it could be used quite nicely. So, I think you guys would do a great job with the roadway if you took possession of it, or whatever would happen there. I don't even know what would happen with the street, or who would be responsible for the, who would take ownership of the street as well. That's another question I have. So, I think overall, I'm supportive of safer routes, safer transportation routes, but I do have a few concerns that still, to me, haven't been addressed. So I'm interested in finding that information out. So whenever you do find out, Steve, you know, we'd definitely be interested in getting those results. Thank you.
Councilmember Scatini?
I already asked my questions.
Councilmember Friend?
I really don't have any questions. Like Victor said, I'm interested in finding out what the people in that direct neighborhood would think of it, but I think it's, you know, a little inconvenience for some people, but like the gentleman said, 11,000 people, kids walking across that street every day. I think that might weigh a little heavier than a little inconvenience, but I think it's worth looking into, and I think it's worth going.
Okay, well, let me give you my 2 cents. You know, I think Councilmember Gomez pointed something out that's very important. Really, we're trading one problem for another. So what we're talking about right now with that red area is protecting the high school kids, but at the same time, what we're going to do is put some other smaller kids in danger as people are racing around that neighborhood to get around that barrier, and they will do that. I think the way Councilmember Gomez explained it is absolutely dead on. People are going to use those streets to get around, and there's children in those neighborhoods. Now, you're going to have neighborhoods now, South Street and the others, with a lot more traffic coming at it to get around this problem. So I think we can all agree this is a problem. You know, my kids are headed to the high school here, but I think we need to look at this in a bigger picture and understand. I mean, we talked about, I think Mr. Rodriguez talked about partnerships here, and that's really what it comes down to. What makes it worth it? Now, we're talking about sports fields down below, and the high school is talking about sports fields up above. You know, this is an opportunity for government agencies to work together. If we can come to an agreement, I mean, if we're going to build sports fields, that should be for the public. You know, I went to tour a sports facility in San Diego to go look at how they did it, and it mirrors what the high school was proposing, and it mirrors what the county's proposing. So I don't think we build two. Won't make much sense now, will it? But if we can partner together and build one facility where the high school can use it during the week, and we could bring tournaments on the weekend, now we're talking about a partnership. I also see a space for a library there that we all know we need. And we have to start talking about this and stop dodging this issue and face up to it. Now, you know, I've heard the response, well, we can't blend a public library with a high school. Well, my friend and fellow mayor in Soledad would highly disagree with you because they did it over there. So we have to, if we're going to change things for our residents or make them a little frustrated here, we need to make sure we're planning correctly for this. Now, this problem's there because of bad planning from years ago. Let's just face that. So is it for us to keep doing this, or is it for us to start working together now and say, look, we can put a sports field here for the community to use, a high school to use during the week, the community to use on the weekends or in the evenings, and bring in teams. We could put a library there for our kids to use, and that would be the greatest thing in the world. Maybe we can have the YMCA, but we're going to need that help from the high school the county and the city working together. And I think this is probably one of the most important opportunities we all have right now to pull it together. Now, we can choose to all go our separate ways and say, we want our sports field and you have your sports field. Who cares about the library? Well, I care. And I think we should all care, because this comes right down to keeping our young people busy and doing positive things, because I think the chief would tell you he cares. So here's an opportunity to do it. We need to step back and talk about this before we get ahead of ourselves and start making mistakes that we're going to regret in the future. I think this is that opportunity, and we should put the groups together and hammer this thing out in a positive way that makes sense for the entire community, rather than just trade one problem for another. Because in my eyes, it doesn't work that way. And that's my 2 cents. So with that, I'm going to ask council, is there a motion to proceed, or?
I'm just looking for some input so that we can actually begin to work with county staff. City and county staff can work together to come up with and answer some of those problems, those questions that have been raised. I do actually have some answers tonight if you're interested to hear them, or we can do that in a different form in terms of negotiation between city and county staff, and then bringing that to elected officials, whatever you prefer.
I have a consensus that the committee, the council is in favor of what you're doing. I don't think we need a resolution.
No, no resolution, just consensus.
Well, I'm not in favor of what's happening here until we have a conversation, because I think if we keep going here, what we're going to find ourselves doing is blocking it off and find ourselves with no park down below and probably no sports field up above and definitely no library in the area. So I think at the end, if we don't talk now and hammer this out, we're all going to lose.
I would like, personally, I'd like to see us go back to the governance committee. Okay, you got the city, you got the county, you got the school, you got everybody at the governance committee. That's where I'd like to see it go.
I agree. I think it should go back to intergovernmental and have some.
Have these discussions been brought up to the intergovernmental committee?
We just started at the last
About 3
meeting.
months ago, actually. In
Okay.
October, this was brought up, and we had a discussion, and then there was some debate as to disagreements and things of that nature. Then what
Okay.
happened was the subcommittee wanted to meet with the high school committee, and they did that, and then that we were going to have this discussion in front of this board, but we want to go to intergovernmental first, and then basically intergovernmental was kind of a split decision from the city members. So then we came to this to try to get the census of the whole board, whether
Okay.
we should go forward or not. So that's what brought us
Okay.
to this point today.
So at this point, intergovernmental is not. I think most of the supervisors that were involved and some of the council members wanted more information, more
Right.
options.
Right.
Well, I'm going to make this point here, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong on it already. Maybe you guys, nothing of this sort was going to happen, but in no way am I supportive of closing down Nash Road until everything else is complete. So, I just want to make sure that we understand that. I mean, I need to see the study. We would need to see the roadway signalized intersections or whatever they may be installed before any kind of closure would take place on Nash Road. I mean, I don't want, like Mayor Velasquez said, I don't want to be, closing down the road and then end up with an empty bag in our hands. You know what I mean? I can't support that. But I'm supportive of you continuing to look into it, Steve, and you folks in the county continuing to look into it, because I agree. I mean, this is, and like Mayor Velasquez said, I think this is a great opportunity to partner again, and bring, as Mr. Rodriguez said, bring these 30 government entities together and to find a solution. That's what we need to do. Interesting enough, I also noticed the ball fields, and I was like, "What the heck? More ball fields?" But every time it's a lot of people see the nice and fuzzy green stuff, and I see O&M costs. So, it's none of our business, I guess.
If I may just interject a little bit, and I think because I have my own issues with this, and I try not to bring it in when I'm discussing these things with Steve. But where I think Steve needs to be, and I think where the city needs to be, is we at least we have to understand what the facts are that we're dealing with. And I think the facts that we need to start dealing with is the traffic study, what that does for circulation in and around the school, I think that's actually key. We're not actually asking anybody to make a statement of intent to close Nash Road now. You folks have a lot of time to make sure that we get our partnerships done. But we need to somehow get off of kind of first base a little bit and head towards second. The engineer, the traffic study, it may show something completely different, and it may just not work for anybody. I mean, it's not likely going to not work for the high school because the high school really wants it closed, and there is a safety problem there. I mean, so I, like Victor, had a daughter that just went for 4 years, thank God, and she's done. But I think I think all Steve is looking for, and I think Adam is looking for, is just kind of what the consensus of the council is like. Look, we're not making a commitment right now to close National Road, but before we say no, we want to make sure we have all the facts. So let us try to get you the facts so that you can make an educated decision on how you want to go.
They can't put an overcross there, over that road? That will solve the problem.
Basically, the overcross, as Mr. Tiffany pointed out, is prohibitively expensive, one, and actually it probably wouldn't serve to solve the problem, because what happens at overpasses these days is they're finding out that basically Americans and people in general are lazy, and they find a way to go around it rather than go over it. So what will happen is you essentially would have to put K-rail or some kind of fencing along the entire side of Nash Road. But you have problems when you get to the residential areas where the apartments are. So what's going to happen is students are going to go around that structure, whatever it is, to avoid going up and over. So it's not very feasible to go up above it in terms of how we would do it construction-wise. You can't really go underneath it because of ADA requirements. You would actually have to start that ramp, either big circular or something on the far side of the old gym to get enough to go up and underneath it. So those kinds of things have been looked at in the past. You know, I was part of that when I was with the city looking at what the possible solutions could be. Those are not feasible options, going under, going over. They're not feasible. They wouldn't work in this kind of situation.
We have utilities in that road, so you have to go pretty deep to get underneath the road.
Right. I just, food for thought, I thought I'd just throw it out there.
Okay.
So then just one thing to interject some of Mr. Councilman Gomez's questions. The county does not have enough funding right now to build the plan that was shown on that plan right there. They do, however, have enough money to acquire the land and do the basic infrastructure, the infrastructure of the road, and whatever kind of interchange requirements would be determined as by the traffic engineer, whatever that comes out to be. So there would be enough funds to get basically this road in. We have some large yellow equipment that can make some trails and walking trails down in that area, but the grass and fields and all that kind of stuff, that would be different levels, different agreements coming down in the future. We have enough money, like I said, to acquire the land, do some basic improvements, construct this project, and then we would have to see what came out as a priority into the next kind of funding cycle.
Steve, you're with the county.
Yes.
So, you know, you just mentioned that the county has the money for this and that. Where's the Board of Trustees? How much funding is coming from them?
So basically, the property is actually in negotiation, but basically what we're looking at is much of the actual infrastructure, hard dollars would come from the county's traffic impact fees, because essentially what the county has to do in order to develop a park, it has to develop a way to get into it and get out of it. So that road would be dual purpose. It would be built to county standards, which means that it would have 2 lanes each way. It would have bicycle lanes each way. It may not have a dedicated sidewalk. There would be a different path that would come across kind of between the gated community, and there would be a dedicated bicycle path, Class 1 bike path to go down into the park. The actual road itself, as we have currently envisioned it, does not have sidewalks. It does have bicycle lanes. It has 2-way traffic, standard widths to accommodate the traffic to go through there. All that would be constructed on the county's dime through the park impact fees. The negotiation we're working through is there would be an exchange of property in lieu of that, so there would be kind of a donation of that property perhaps from the high school. They have not decided that. I don't want to speak for them, but that was the discussion process that we're working towards.
So the property that needs to be acquired is owned by the high school?
That's correct, and we would trade that value of that property for these. So we, instead of writing the high school perhaps a check, and like I said, this is all, we're still negotiating. This is nothing to be decided by the board or by the high school district, but the proposed talking process is we would actually trade the value of that land, which does have value, and we would actually construct that road with those dollars. It would meet the high school's interest in terms of having that process happen. It meets our process because we have to buy the land from somebody, so we acquire the land for that.
No, that's good. That's good to hear. Yeah, I mean, for something like that to happen, that's ideal. If I heard that you
Like I
guys
say,
were going to have
that's-
to purchase the property.
That's why I'm saying it's
Not
kind
good.
of hard to try to figure out where you've come in and where you
Yeah.
haven't come in. What we're actually looking for in terms of financial commitment from the city is actually zero. The city would have no financial commitment into this because whatever kind of traffic controls we require at either end of it would come out of the park dollars because they have to do those improvements anyway to support the park that would be constructed south of that road.
So is there an extra 350,000 for those stoplights also?
The stoplights we estimated to be about 80.
80,000?
Yeah, because basically what we have is the experience that we had for the construction of the signals that are at the end of Fairview and Sunny Slope Road.
Can you put stoplights over here at the courthouse for us for 80,000?
No, that's your jurisdiction, not mine.
Okay. We'll hire your guys for that. I'd like to say, going back to the road not having a sidewalk. You know, we just talked about a new development right down the street from there.
Yes.
And I'm sure they want to use that park if this is happening, but they're going to need a sidewalk. So these are all things that are important. And we, you know, again, I think, you know, step back and look at the traffic study and some of the other studies. Right. I agree. But it's time to really start talking about how we do this right, not make a mistake here.
I'm supportive of you know, getting more information. You know, obviously, we're not making any kind of firm decision, so
Yeah.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but I'm supportive of it. And I also want to apologize to Steve because you're just a giver of the information, and it seems like everybody's throwing stuff at you. So
That's what I'm here for.
Sorry, Steve. We like you now. We liked you when you were here, but we still like you. Sorry. Hope it's not coming out that way.
No, it's all good.
So as Councilmember Friend, I think the consensus was we will move forward with the traffic information so we have a better idea of what's going on. That's the consensus? Okay, thank you very much. Item H, I, J, and K, there is no business. I'd like to, if we can, adjourn in the memory of Rendida Becerra, a young lady who passed away recently. So, all in favor? Motion carries. Thank you very much, everyone.